Hello there, Jarod the Dark Jedi here. As all of you are aware, the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild are both on strike. And after some consideration, it has been determined that review content, like what is mostly predominantly makes up a lot of what we produce, is still going to be not considered crossing the picket line. It is still encouraged by the Screen Actors Guild, who established new terms additional to what was being asked to be complied with the WGA. What we do here, the conversations we love to have with a bunch of our friends, to have with you guys, is not possible. The stories we love to talk about, the stories that we love, do not get made without the blood, sweat, tears, creativity, and brilliance of the writers and actors. And currently, the studios who produce the things we love are working these writers and actors to death, not compensating them appropriately, and are trying to replace them with AI. I would think it goes without saying that the Nerd Academy podcast stands staunchly with the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild, and we'll be supporting them from here until the end of these strikes in whatever way that we can. There will be links in each episode description so that you are able to see how you can help, where you can help, how you can donate to different funds to keep food in the belly and roofs over the heads of the writers and actors who are trying to make historic change in Hollywood as we speak. This review, this discussion, this news roundup, whatever the episode may be, was recorded during these strikes, and our love for the works of these writers, of these actors, will continue to be praised and discussed while they fight for their rights. And I want to implore everybody watching and listening to aid in whatever way they can. We stand in solidarity, and we ask that you do too. So, without any further ado, here's the show.
The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Good morning, class, and welcome back to the Nerd Academy podcast, your source for nerddom news and commentary. And I, first of all, just want to thank anybody and everybody who pressed play on this in their podcast feed or clicked on this YouTube video despite seeing the runtime. I do want to assure you, however, that you are going to get your time's worth. This was one of my favorite episodes we've recorded already. Dave, Mr. Radtastic, I think, has a handle on the DC pantheon and what makes these characters tick and how to adapt and remix these ideas and kind of transmutate and reinterpolate the DC Comics mythos. And in doing so, I think he created true what could, and frankly, in my opinion, should be some of the definitive versions of these characters. I've seen his videos on TikTok several times before I tried reaching out to him. I reached out to him a while ago. He deleted his Instagram. I will retread all of this in the show itself, so I'm not going to get into it. I've been trying to make this episode happen for like a year, and I'm really proud of it. I'm really excited for you guys to hear Dave's vision for what the future of the DC universe, or for what a future DC cinematic universe could look like. And I'm incredibly excited for you all to hear it. But first, before we jump into that, a little bit of housekeeping. First, today, when you're hearing this, I will be live on the Nerd Herder YouTube channel. I'll be sitting down with Boop and JD to talk about Qui-Gon Jinn, one of my all-time favorite Jedi. Very excited for that. I think you all enjoy that. I'm gonna get on my soapbox about why Qui-Gon is the GOAT for real. So tune into that. I'm getting ready to buckle down and get the Versus Series and Heroic History 101 back up and running. Between work stuff, scheduling stuff, Spencer, going on vacation with his fam, him doing his mission stuff, all of that. Things have been a little chaotic, but things are going to kind of level out here. And obviously, we have Ahsoka weekly reviews and coverage to look forward to. So, all of that said, before we jump into the show and I throw you guys to past Jarod, a brief word from our sponsors at Sunday's Bloody Mary, the most badass Bloody Mary accoutrement in the multiverse. I cannot recommend it enough. As a former bartender, potentially future bartender, we'll see what happens there. I, as somebody who preferred to make my Bloody Marys from scratch until I had Sunday's Bloody Mary, their spicy mix, in my opinion, is the only Bloody Mary mix worth having. If you can't make it from, if you can't, like the only two ways to enjoy Bloody Mary, in my opinion, are to make it from scratch or have Sunday's Bloody Mary. And not gonna lie to you, I prefer Sunday's Bloody Mary to my own Bloody Mary skills. They have their spicy mix that is a 3-time award winner. They also have their mild and traditional mixes. If the spice isn't for you, they have pickled dilly beans, okra, and asparagus. Some of those are sold out at the moment, so you can get your freak on and garnish that bad boy. And if you are real nasty, you can salt that rim too with some Sunday's Bloody Mary rim salt. Get on over there, sundaysbloodymary.com/shop. Use code TNAP, TNAP at checkout, and you get 10% off your order, and you help out your favorite nerds while you do it. With that, I am going to open a boom tube here and throw you all into the past as Travis and I sit down with Dave, Mr. Radtastic himself, to talk about his DC. I have been hyping this episode up for weeks now. I reached out to this guest some time ago, and then life started lifing. And in between that first interaction of, like, as I've been seeing his videos on TikTok for a minute, I reached out to him on Instagram, and life started lifing, and I kind of forgot to get back to him. I was like, oh fuck, I gotta reach back out to Mr. Radtastic. And in the meantime, he had deleted his Instagram account. And then I was like, oh fuck me, I've made a severe mistake, and now I've missed this opportunity.
You've insulted him so bad.
I insulted him so badly, and then I took a shot in the dark because TikTok's weird about messaging people when you're not mutuals. Sometimes it'll let you, sometimes it won't. And I lucked out, and it let me send a couple messages to Rad, and he is here now. Without further ado, Mr. Radtastic himself is here.
Hi!
Welcome to the Nerd Academy podcast, my friend.
It is a pleasure to be here.
Like I said, I am so excited. This is going to be a really fun episode. Travis has not like watched your DC Cinematic Universe pitch. I have watched it. I've
never heard
watched,
of Batman. I've never heard of Batman.
What the fuck's a Bruce Wayne? No. So
Bruce
I've
the Bat Thumb guy.
Yeah, but I've seen probably the lion's share of your videos. Definitely, like 95% of your DC ones. But for the people at home who have not yet been graced by your content, tell the people who you are, what you do, and where they can find you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dave, aka Mr. Radtastic, and that is my handle on the only 2 remaining social medias I have, which is the website formerly known as Twitter and TikTok. I started a project based on a bet with myself in the 11th grade when I was 17 years old that spiraled into an entire DC cinematic universe of my own creation. And I'm here today to talk about Phase 1.
Yes. I'm very excited for this. I said this off air just a few moments ago, and I want to reiterate it now, just to kind of prime people for what they're about to hear. Um, the thing that I love so much about Dave's vision is that you know when to pull something directly off the page and when to like remix and tweak things. Some things that since you've published a lot of your videos, which are also available on YouTube, for me, binging your first three phases of of your DC Cinematic Universe, using the YouTube playlist for me was the most convenient, which I would recommend to anybody else
Oh,
trying to.
yes. I put everything on YouTube during the first TikTok might get taken down scare. I put everything on YouTube, and I make sure to upload any DCCU stuff also to YouTube same day as TikTok.
So yeah, so you can also find you on YouTube as well. But yeah, just watching the whole thing beginning to end in like basically one sitting, I just was amazed. And you know, there's some things that you've, you know, since making those videos has made its way into some projects. I don't want to spoil anything for Travis because this is a phase 2 thing. But you had some ideas about Bizarro.
I was very
you-
happy that an
Did you
idea
make them
I wrote.
make Flash put a baby in the microwave?
That was me. I'm sorry about
Okay.
that one. I
No,
thought
that's
it was
fine. I'm fine with that.
hilarious. Yes, I was very happy to see that a Bizarro idea I wrote 8 years ago made its way to an actual canonical piece of DC media.
Well,
I
mean,
do want to say, so I have not
Travis.
finished Superman and Lois yet,
Mhm.
and I'm like halfway through season 2, and I knew Doomsday had showed up in season 3, and when they were introducing Bizarro, I'm like, oh, that's Doomsday, and then the suit, you know, it tears, and it's Bizarro, and I was like, oh, this is a weird way to do Bizarro, and my brain didn't connect the two until Jarod mentioned it later, that like you had the idea, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, listen, WB, the AMPTP needs to figure this shit out with the writers, and then
Mhm.
after that, someone needs to get this motherfucker in a guild and cut him a check. That's all I'm saying. But I'm gonna give you the floor here. There's only one clip I can play before we get into this, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart.
It's gonna be a big nut bust.
All right, Dave, the floor is yours to set the scene, set the tone, and get us started with your DC Cinematic Universe. I keep saying it with your cadence, and it's not intentional. I've noticed that when I'm telling my girlfriend about how excited for this episode I am, I keep saying it like DC Cinematic Universe. I have to stop myself from doing the hands. Anyway, all you.
All right. The beginning of my DC Cinematic Universe starts where any DC universe should, with Superman. He was the first superhero basically ever, and he was DC's first guy. So we need to start there. We start the movie off on Krypton. We establish Jor-El, his brother Zor-El, and his father-in-law Lor Van. They are scientists on Krypton. They're in the Krypton Hall of Science because they are testing Jor-El's crazy theory that Krypton's going to explode. Jor-El is Krypton's most scientifically advanced mind, like the biggest stuff. He invented self-replicating nanobots that can build crystalline structures. He built an AI duplicate of himself that is basically just the smartest thing in the entire world. And the man has some crazy theories, though. He thinks that, one, under yellow sunlight, Kryptonians could develop superpowers, which everyone thinks is blasphemous because it's based on his interpretation of the Kryptonian Book of Ra, which is the Kryptonian Bible. And then he has another theory that Krypton's going to explode. Krypton is, in my universe, a uranium core planet. So it's highly, highly radioactive. So the life there evolved not only to survive radiation, but sustain themselves upon it. So Kryptonians are just naturally immune to most wavelengths of radiation. They're used to taking it in for their bodies. But Jor-El insists that the core of the planet is going to degrade, and it's going to take one loose electron, start a chain reaction that will literally blow up the planet. And all of the scientists agree that is an inevitability for their planet, but it is decades off. Jarod is trying to prove to his brother and his father-in-law, who is the head of the guild, that he's not crazy. But they keep running the simulations on the Kryptonian Hall of Science computers, and it keeps consistently saying the core is stable. Jarod, insisting that he's not nuts, dives into the source code of this and finds that someone is messing with it, that the planetary mass is wrong, the calculations are all based off of false data. He fixes it, runs it again, still says the same thing. He goes back in, the data was tampered with again. So this gets the other two guys in the room curious. They look into it and they find little remnants of a ghost source code of something hacking in and changing their math. This literally the three smartest people on the entire planet in this room. They trace that stuff back. They're getting a signal from lower orbit, something hovering above the planet of Krypton. Suddenly, all of the lights to the entire Kryptonian Hall of Science go out. The three dots appear on the screen. It's Brainiac. He's been found out, and he's done with the act. He's like, yeah, it's okay. It's been me. That's fine. Congratulations on finding me. That's really cool that a dumb little planet that I'm going to blow up is smart enough to identify me. So I want you to know I'm going to save that on record. And bye, because your planet's blown up today. So it's all good. And Brainiac fires a beam, just triggers the thing just a couple days early. Krypton was going to explode almost immediately. In this universe, Krypton is just a pre-warp civilization. They don't have warp speed, so they only have light speed engines. So that is why when Krypton explodes, there's only, the handful of survivors because they literally can't get off world. Jarod rushes back home where his wife and his newborn son are. They have the whole exchange of the planet's going to explode, and he wants to enact his other theory of he wants to send his boy off to Earth. Luckily, Jarod has finished recently a test probe of a faster than light engine. He has developed warp speed, and he has a test probe that he was going to launch off just to see how it works. So he starts rapidly trying to adapt this thing into a life support pod for his baby, because a 1 in a million chance that your kid is going to survive is better than a 0% chance that your kid is going to survive. So while he's doing that, Brainiac starts trying to come in because Brainiac also doesn't have faster than light travel yet. Brainiac has been hopping between worlds, traveling at light speed, so centuries in between planets. And he's been taking out pre-warp civilizations, stealing all of their data, and moving on because he is bolstering himself until he can take on the Green Lantern Corps, the cops of space. He is trying to fly right under their radar the entire time.
Whoa, pause. Is Travis rocking his bling today?
I might be.
Is Travis rocking the bling
to commemorate the occasion and maybe here.
Based. Sorry, Dave.
Oh, fine, and that's a good ring. So as this is happening, Brainiac begins sending his drones to attack Jor-El's house because Jor-El keeps the plans for the warp engine on his private server because Jor-El's a little bit of a paranoid guy. And Brainiac hasn't been able to hack Jor-El's stuff. His plan was when the planet explodes, just collect all of Jor-El's stuff and spend however many centuries breaking into it. And so he's sending his stuff there to recover now. And he sees that Jor-El is adapting a life support pod to shoot a child off, which ruins the entire experiment, which is collect all of the data a planet can achieve, blow it up, move on to the next thing, so he can catalog the entire universe. If there's a survivor, then the history of Krypton isn't finished yet. It ruins the whole thing. He tries to blow him up. And they don't really have a good defense against this. And so Jor-El looks at his wife, the astronaut Laura Lorvan, and he asks her if she trusts him. And she says, absolutely, I do. So they run over to his little solar chamber where he's been testing different types of Kryptonian plants and livestock and stuff, like maybe a mouse, under solar radiation. They rip everything out of it, and she just sort of hobbles in there like it's maybe the size of a refrigerator. She gets in there, he slams the thing shut, he cranks it to maximum, and he goes back to working on this life support pod. Baby Cal is screaming and crying as giant alien robots are trying to break into their house. And one does. A very big attack drone bursts down the door, starts walking up to Jor-El. It's raising its hand. It's going to deliver the killing blow. And then we hear a bang, and we see the refrigerator door slam against this thing, fly across the room, send it into the wall. And we see red eyes glowing, panting, heaving Laura Lorvan, slightly superpowered. And so then we get a cool little Laura Lorvan super fight as she destroys robots trying to kill her son, as Jor-El finishes up the math and retools his probe to now land safely on the planet of Earth. He calculates I want to send this kid to a rural place in a well-developed nation, somewhere where hopefully a government won't find him and he won't be raised in a lab. He puts in all that stuff. He takes off his little band that he uses to update his AI. He has a mental neural link to his AI. He takes that off. He puts it in the pod. He takes his backup Fortress of Solitude growth crystal, puts that in the pod, basically with the hard drive of everything Krypton's ever done, and he launches the pod. The pod is taking off. Kryptonian drones are trying to reach it, or Brainiac drones are trying to reach it. When Lara Lorvan sees this, she screams out no. She's terrified. There's nothing she can do. She doesn't have flight. She only has maybe limited jumping and some super speed and strength. She screams, her eyes glowing red once again, shoot off laser beams, take out the Kryptonian drones before they can get her son. Warp drive kicks in. Baby Cal is gone. Brainiac screams as Krypton explodes. And we see that the capital city of Kandor has been raised from the ground and suddenly gone in a flash. And then we cut to Earth. Hooray! And now that last sequence sounds like it to be very, very long. When you do all the visuals and get everything running, I estimate that would maybe be 10 to 15 minutes of the movie.
Because like multiple things are happening over top of each other.
Multiple things are happening over top of each other. There's easy ways to have the exposition fit in there, especially since you're having two guys trying to disprove Jor-El about his theories. That's a very easy exposition dump that doesn't feel like forced exposition.
Yeah, and you can even kind of like very, very Nolan style, like have expository dialogue running over the action as well.
Exactly. Just little details. You don't need these guys to be staring at the camera saying all of these things, as opposed to me as I narrate a movie to you guys. We then cut to Earth, and this is now a little bit of a flashback. It's a couple years before the last sequence that we just saw. People are screaming. There's a collapsed building in a small rural town. Everything is on fire. A man is screaming, "Where's Kent?" And someone rushes over and says, "He's still in there." Firefighters run over. They start pulling rubble off, and they uncover Jonathan Kent, a young firefighter holding a collapsed building over a child. They get the kid out of there. They save the kid, and they pull Jonathan out, and he is busted. His legs are absolutely shattered. I'm talking bone through the leg, horribly broken. They rush him to the hospital. They fix up his legs, put him in a cast, and then the beautiful doctor walks in to treat him by the name of Martha Clark. She is Smallville's resident doctor. She's one of the head doctors, not a surgeon. And she looks over his chart. She goes, "All right, yeah, he should be recovered in, however many months. And, when you are, here's my number. Like, thanks for saving that kid. He's my godson. So nice." And then we just get a lovely little sort of, it's the montage from Up of Jonathan and Martha falling.
I was just about to say that.
It's the montage from Up. I'm not even shameless about it. They just do that. They get married. We just get a little thing in there of them smashing the glass in the napkin because I want to confirm that Martha Clark is Jewish in this universe. They have the wedding. Everything's going great. They move into the house. Jonathan, no longer able to be a firefighter because he can now no longer pass the physical, decides instead of keeping a desk job at the firehouse, reopens his parents' farm and just runs the farm, actually planting and growing crops and working on it. And then they start trying for kids and find that they cannot have kids. This is because, as we find out, Martha Clark has cervical cancer. She then goes through a cancer recovery phase, and they leave a recovery ward however many years later at this point, and they're driving home, and they're both just sort of crying. It's a little mix of like, hooray, you've been diagnosed, you're cancer-free, you beat the cancer, but also, we can't have kids. It's a little bit of a bummer. But as they're talking about it, and as they bring up, hey, well, there's always adoption. We can adopt a kid. We'd be amazing parents. Space baby! A rocket crashes in front of them, lands on the side of the road. They approach it. A hologram of Jor-El and Lara Lorvan holding their infant son is there, and they're just sort of gesturing. Like, there's a huge language barrier, so they're not talking. They're just trying to gesticulate, like, please take care of this kid. Pod opens, little baby. Well, Jonathan works at the firehouse, so they use the lovely built-in thing that if you leave a baby at a firehouse, it enters the adoption system. You can just leave it there anonymously. No paperwork has to be done, anything like that. And Martha, well, she's a doctor. So who are they going to take the kid to get all of his medical tests done on this random alien baby that just crashed in their yard? Her. So they cook everything up, and bada bing, bada boom, you have a legitimate baby in the system No holes in his backstory. No one's going to question where this kid came from. Everyone's just going to assume, yeah, left a kid at the firehouse. That happens sometimes. And who's going to adopt it? Hey, Jonathan and Martha have been trying to have kids for a while. They'll take it. And there it is. Clark is now adopted. We get a lovely then montage of him growing up and him developing superpowers for the first time. And it's a little bit of a scary experience, but I wanted to treat it a little lighter than other Clark developing superpower sequences have been.
Now you're going to drive home. You're going to drive home the point that he shouldn't help people, right?
Yes, absolutely. Never, ever, ever raise your hand to help someone. That is terrible.
He's going to let his father die in a tornado he easily could have saved him from and concealed himself, and it'll be in black and white.
Because as we all know, freak feats of human strength in crisis scenarios are not things anyone's ever seen or heard of. So
no,
how could
I've never felt love or emotion.
How could he possibly have saved his father from that tornado?
Fuck them kids. Drop that school bus in a river. Moving on.
God, infuriating. We get the lovely montage. Clark accidentally tackles his best friend while playing football when they're about 7 years old, and he shatters his best friend's arm. Jonathan sits him down and is like, okay, bud, like super strength has entered the equation here. You can't hug your mom and I until we get this knocked down. So what you're going to do, your job, congratulations, you got to get the eggs every morning. So we get a quick, funny little comedy montage of Clark's job is to go collect the eggs from the hen house every single morning until he has his super strength under control. And so when he finally brings out, just a montage of him grab an egg, crack. Oh no, kid's covered in egg. Finally, we get to the lovely thing. He comes out, basket full of unbroken eggs. I did it. Jonathan hucks an egg at his kid. Splatters on his shirt. He's like, until you can catch one without it shattering, then we'll know you got this down. And so there we go. Jonathan helped Clark learn all of his powers. We get more time skips, and we now have a 16-year-old Clark very excited about school, very excited about the prospect of college coming up. He's excited about his date with Lana he has going on, and Jonathan collapses. Martha is at work, so Clark is all alone with his dad, who just collapsed in front of him. Clark picks him up, super speeds to the hospital, gets him there in seconds. Jonathan is still mid-heart attack as the time Clark gets him to the hospital. Clark is just crying, like, please help my dad. Doctors take Jonathan into the back. Jonathan doesn't make it. Jonathan had heart disease and passed away. This was just a very bad episode that ended everything. And Clark blames himself for this. He believes he should have been faster. He should have been better. He can do better. And he really dedicates his idea to, I'm going to get better at this. And so when we get the funeral scene, everyone in Smallville coming to mourn Jonathan. We then cut to a couple years later. Martha and Clark very excitedly get news back. He had 2 response letters, one from Gotham U, one from Metropolis 2, his 2 biggest cities. He wanted to go to the cities in the United States with the biggest amounts of crimes where he could do the most good. And so he sent his applications, and he got into Metropolis U. Hooray, he gets to go to Metropolis. And so with love in her heart, Martha sends her boy off to the big city. So this movie is going to largely be following an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, and 20-year-old Clark Kent as he tries to get a handle of what it means to be a superhero in the city. It's based on the comic Man and Superman, which is my favorite version of Superman's origins, because it shows a Superman who messes up and tries to do better and learns how to do this whole thing. He comes at everything with a pretty clumsy farm boy raised attitude, and he's suddenly in the big city where big crimes are happening, and he is a hammer trying to fix problems that require a screwdriver. He doesn't know what to do. And as he moves to Metropolis, he goes to Metropolis U. He majors in journalism. He gets a job at the Daily Star, the competitor to the Daily Planet. And this is also where we're introduced to Lex Luthor. He's the head of LexCorp, and he has, in a big public move, he has moved the HQ of the entire company to Metropolis. Metropolis was a city built in the 1938 World's Fair by his grandfather, Lachlan. It was supposed to be Metropolis, the city of tomorrow. So the whole city has a retro-futuristic aesthetic, and it totally just looks like Metropolis does in the comics. It was supposed to be a utopia, and it failed miserably because it was planned terribly. The science wasn't sound. The whole thing went under, and it quickly became one of the most crime-ridden, horrible cities in the United States. It's built on an artificial island in the middle of Chesapeake Bay, I believe. Chesapeake Bay. It's near Washington, D.C. I put my metropolis in Virginia. Clark moves there. When he moves there, he sees the Daily Planet. The Golden Globe at the top of it doesn't spin. He finds out it hasn't spun in decades. It broke. They never fixed it. And he's questioned for why he's always looking up. You don't want to look up in Metropolis. You want to keep your head down. And this just doesn't really sit well with him. And so while he is trying to help the city morally, Lex is trying to help the city financially. My Lex Luthor is genuinely trying to help Metropolis, albeit for his own financial gain, but he is trying to do some good in the city. Not too much good, though, because as we find out upon the opening of the Metropolis monorail, it's attacked by Intergang, who are wielding some really awesome high-tech weapons. And we, the audience, are shown that they steal the weapons from LexCorp, use them in big, public, awesome crimes, and this is essentially how Lex does commercials for his big, awesome guns. Like, oh, no, the criminals stole my big, awesome laser gun and then blew something up with it. Hey, U.S. military, by the way, $20 million a pop. And that's how Lex does his entire thing. Intergang is just a front for him to sell his weapons.
This was fiction.
Yeah, I know.
LexCorp, aka Raytheon.
Let's see. I have my lovely summary on right here. As Clark is trying to do good, he adopts the moniker of the Masked Aviator. So this is like if you've seen the animated movie Superman Man of Tomorrow, for the beginning of the Tomorrowverse, it's that suit. It's just that he has the mask on, he has the leather jacket, he has the whole thing, and he's trying to do good, save the day, and he's messing up a lot. He sees a woman getting mugged and he goes to stop the mugging, and someone fires bullets, and in one fell swoop he finds out, oh cool, I'm bulletproof, and also bullets ricochet off of me, and the bullet ricochets off of him and hits the woman he was trying to save. And so now he has to stop one thing and then rush this woman to the hospital, and he just kind of freaks out about that, because even though he thought he was doing great, this is a lot harder than he ever thought. But that's not going to stop him, because he's Clark Kent. While this is happening, he is being hounded by Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen, who'd also decide that, hey, this vigilante is totally worth following here. And when he stops, especially the monorail attack that I had mentioned, Lex Luthor reopens the Metropolis monorail. It's going to go all the way around the city. It's going to allow everyone really fast travel everywhere. It gets attacked by Intergang on opening day. The newspaper reporters are there. Everything's going great. Attacked. Oh no, terrible. Masked Aviator rushes in, stops this, saves the day, and then fixes everything. He stops the train from the front, so you get that classic, the train derails because you should not stop trains from the front. Flies off the tracks. He saves everyone from it. He stops Intergang. And as he makes sure everyone's okay, he then fixes all of the damage that he had done. And people of Metropolis feel pretty good about this new kid.
I just want to pause again. WB, you owe this man some money.
I was so happy. I was so happy when he actually fixed the problem. He should. It takes no time for him. If you give him super speed, this just becomes like picking up your plate after you eat. Like, come on, it's nothing for this guy. More just quick clips of that, of Superman trying and failing to be a superhero, everything going bad, and as he's having his biggest crisis of faith, as he is framed for the destruction of a test rocket. Lex Luthor at LexCorp is sending off one of his new rockets, because Lex Luthor is, of course, the guy being like, we're going to get to Mars, and I'm going to do it. Here's my crew. It's Hank Henshaw and all of his people. They're going to take this thing up, and everything's going to go great. Clark is there to report on it. Lois is there to report on it. As it's taking off, Clark sees right there's a bomb on that rocket. He has to stop it. So he zoops off, flies up. Lex Luthor is blowing the whole thing up for insurance money. He doesn't care. He doesn't actually care about leaving off-world. This was just a front. As Superman rushes towards it, Lex is like, oh, this is perfect. Doo-doo. Thing goes off. The last thing Hank Henshaw sees is Superman sprinting towards their rocket, and then it explodes, and what the public sees is the same thing. He feels pretty terrible about this. No one really kind of believes that that's what's going on, even though he saved the burning husk of Hank Henshaw and brought it down to a hospital to get treatment. Clark is having a bit of a crisis of consciousness at this point, and he calls his mom for reassurance, and that is when we, the audience, find out that Martha's cancer is back. She's relapsed, and she hasn't told her son because she knows that he would just rush home to try and save her, even though there's nothing that he could do. And so she doesn't tell her son for a little bit. Let's see. During this whole thing, we get him starting to date Lois Lane, befriending Jimmy Olsen. We got to establish the good Trinity friends. Lois is definitely helping him find out who he is sort of more as a person, but we're getting a lot of the themes of he really wishes he knows what he is. He knows he lives in a world where superpowers have been a thing before, but like he wants to know who his birth parents are. He wants to know his origin. He wants to know all of this stuff, none of which he knows because he hasn't been told by his parents yet. And then finally, when he goes back home to check in with his mom, the whole thing comes down. They have a little bit of an argument about why she couldn't tell him, and she just lets him know because he's too nice. She couldn't tell her boy because he would spend all of his time worrying and trying to take care of her when there are other people out there he can actually be helping, that he should go be helping. And it's not like he was ignoring her. They called every single night. He is a stereotypical amazing son. He was always checking in on his mom. She is a great mother. He is a great son. And he just then spends some time with her back in Metropolis before she ultimately passes, leaving the farm entirely to him. That whole thing wraps up. Oh, wait, just before she passes, whoops. She tells him all about his origins. She shows him the ship. She shows him everything. She explains what they did. She explains they were going to tell him first when he was 16, and then Jonathan died. And then she was trying to tell him before he went for college and couldn't find the right time because she didn't really want to drop a bomb like that on her kid just before he leaves for a long period of time. And it was just a very awkward thing to try and tell your kid, like, hey, you're an alien and we have a spaceship in the barn. They have that conversation. She hands him the crystals. He sees the hologram of his parents. He feels a little bit better for knowing what's going on, but ultimately, especially after the funeral of his mother, he is just angry at sort of everything. He feels now abandoned by his birth parents. He feels abandoned by his adoptive parents, even though they died. And he's just pissed. So he takes this crystal that Jarod left him and he just throws it. But he's Superman. So, he throws it from Kansas and it lands in Antarctica. And then it starts to grow. He notices when he's punching stuff that when it gets wet, it had reacted to water before. And he goes to check on it as it's growing, and it turns into the Fortress of Solitude. He steps in, and there is the AI of Jor-El. The AI of Jor-El motions for him to pick up the little neural link that we've seen Jor-El wear before. Superman puts it on. AI reads his mind a little bit and goes, all right, got it. English. Awesome. What's up, kid? I'm a virtual copy of your dad. How's it going? I'm not your dad. I'm just a virtual copy that looks like him, talks like him, thinks a lot like him. But I'm not exactly him. I am a robot just based on him. And that's probably where we'd actually get a lot of the lore dump for what's going on. And Superman now is aware of his alien origins. He's feeling a little bit better about himself now that he knows who he actually is. Now he can actually focus on becoming who he is meant to be. Also, before Martha's passing, she gave him a present, and it was her own version of the Superman suit. It was based off of the clothes Jor-El was wearing in the hologram. She felt that one day he should go out there and actually be a nice public-facing figure, wearing clothes of his people in case other of his people are out there. She doesn't know that he's the only one, so she figures he should be wearing whatever they were wearing so that he could be recognized on sight. And so
it's a very stupid, very, 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 very anal nerd question.
Yes.
What is the Kryptonian color palette, and does she make it? Does she make Clark's suits? Does she make Clark's suit blue because the hologram is blue, like Star Wars holograms?
Oh no, it is a fully colored hologram. It would have a tint to it,
okay,
but
okay.
You would be able to see that his mom and dad are wearing red, yellow, and blue. That is their color palette. I did a whole video on my lore for how that works on Krypton culture. When two houses get married, they take the logo of the man's house and the name of the man's house, but then the primary color from the woman's house, and this is mixed. So the family of L's all wore green, and then their logo was red and yellow, the S, and that's why this is just based on comics. Almost every single time you see Jor-El, the dude is wearing a green coat of some sort, but he has the classic red and yellow S stitched either on the chest or like on the back or something like that. And so I was like, okay, those are your colors. You're sticking with that. So Jor-El and Zor-El wore that until they both got married. And both of their wives had blue as the primary family color. So Jor-El and Zor-El, and therefore Kara Zor-El. Their kids, their color schemes are red, yellow, blue. And it could be a mix of those, but they've settled red S, yellow shield, blue clothes. And so Martha makes the suit based on that. She does a very good approximation of Kryptonian fashion trends and dresses her boy up in that costume.
They gave a man millions of dollars to have Jimmy Olsen be a CIA agent that gets shot in the back of the fucking head.
Well, no one cares about Jimmy Olsen. Nobody, not a single soul.
I'm so happy with what they're doing with Jimmy in My Adventures with Superman.
Oh, I know. I love conspiracy bullshit to a fault, and Jimmy being kind of pilled makes me so happy.
And they're doing the conspiracy stuff right. Because one of my biggest gripes is when they mix the toxic conspiracy stuff with like actual conspiracy stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of like, oh yeah, the character believes, in this case, the French military made hyper intelligent gorillas. Atlantis is real. Aliens landed in Kansas. It's like, those are real things. But then too often movies will mix that with like harmful, actual real world things.
Oh yeah.
I despite like the character in Godzilla versus Kong. He believed that they were building an evil robot to fight everything, and that Apex Cybernetics was behind everything. But then he also bathed in bleach and didn't drink tap water because fluoride controls your mind. I don't like it when the crazy conspiracy theorist believes the actual harmful real world crazy conspiracies and is right, because I feel like that kind of is trying to say, well, maybe some of those ideas are credible.
Yeah. The only time I do like that is whenever like the crazy conspiracies they believe in are like actual real conspiracies that are real. Yeah. Like if the same guy who's like, listen, man, like going full Pepe Sylvia, like they're building they're building the fucking Robo dinosaur, and he's also like, and have you heard of MK Ultra? Like, it's like actually like knows. Have you heard of the Dulles brothers? Who like know what he's actually talking about. Anyway,
the first designs were made by a guy who got dosed on MK Ultra.
Hey, so
George White.
That's why I love My Adventures with Superman. Jimmy he's right. So everything he said so far. I mean, we haven't had Starro or Atlantis yet, but it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
And I like it when Jimmy Olsen gets respect. And so anyway, now Superman has his origin. He knows everything that's going down. He has his suit. He's still wearing the masked aviator suit, but beneath it, he has the suit that his mom gave him. He's unsure of really when to step into that role. And it's okay because the world decides for him. Intergang, really sick and tired of this dude messing up all their stuff and all their cool trailers they've been trying to shoot for Lex Luthor, takes Lois Lane captive on the top of the Daily Planet because they're like, he always talks to her. Come get her, bud. He flies in. They try to shoot him. Doesn't work. They throw basically a flaming sort of laser grenade thing at him. It blows up. It takes out the Golden Globe and sends it plummeting down to the street. It sets his clothes on fire. He saves Lois and Jimmy. He gets them out of harm's way, and then he leaps off the building, flies down, and manages to catch the Golden Globe before anyone on the street can get crushed, just as the last remnants of the leather jacket and all that stuff burn away and tatter off and fall down. And there he is, no mask, Superman suit, cape flown in the wind, holding the Daily Planet above his head. And then he leaps into the air and he flies up to the top. He puts it back down. I would want the music blaring at that point. He puts it down, he fixes the globe, and he flies off to go be Superman again. And as everyone's sort of recovering from that, the people down in the street are like, whoa, that just happened. He caught that thing. He flew up there. We saw his face. You hear metallic creaking, and everyone stops and turns around, and they see that in this innocent farm boy's attempt to fix the Golden Globe, he actually just fixed it. And so it spins for the first time in 60 years. And everyone in Metropolis now has yet another reason to look up in the sky. And then shortly after that, he finally agrees to
That's so
a
fucking
base
good.
interview.
That's so fucking good. See, this is the nice thing. I've watched you shit so much I haven't had a chance to say this. That is so fucking good.
Thank you.
That is so fucking good. I was punching the air in excitement with the globe started spinning again.
And
I was doing dishes. I almost threw a fucking plate. I got so hyped up by that moment.
And I need this just for everyone saying a little director's commentary on there. Clark didn't realize what he was doing. That was just him being nice of just fixing what was there. He just fixed it. That was not of like, oh, I'm going to do this and it's going to be more meaningful. No, he was just like, oh, got to put this back, get down there, and fix. Done, away. Didn't even realize what he was doing, because that's the whole point of like his whole thing is he never realizes how nice he's being.
You mean he doesn't have to contemplate his Christ-like ideology and how he doesn't want to be a hero, but he feels like he has to. And
yeah, I was to say how many Christ poses?
I know. Let's
Are
take
you going to have him pose
character
next
based
to
on
stained
Jewish
glass
mythology
at
and
some
make
point? Dave, I'm gonna full screen you while you go for a minute. I'll be right back, but keep going.
All right. After this, we finally get the face-to-face interview with Lois Lane. Clark stands there and he explains everything of like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to tell you guys, everyone, the truth about me. I am adopted. I am an alien. I recently found this out. I was sent to Earth by my parents because my home planet exploded. I am just here to help. That's all I want to do. That's how my parents raised me. There's no malicious intent here. My name is Kal-El. I live in the South Pole, because I did change it to the South Pole because we ain't really got a North Pole no more. So that's a bummer. Because my name is Kal-El. I live in the South Pole. I'm just here to help. And as that interview is going viral, everyone around the world is watching that. Oh my gosh, this is so great. That last bit of him saying, my name is Kal-El, echoes out. Camera starts panning out up into space. It gets more distorted. Oh, comes out of cloaking. Brainiac's ship is there. Brainiac went. He just traveled at light speed. It took him however many years to get from Krypton to there. Well, he has a bit faster than light speed, but it took him that long to get there. He's been hovering in there, and he's just been watching and waiting. And he finally hears this. Kal-El, the name of the kid that was shot off Earth. Brainiac has his target. And Brainiac goes full invasion mode. Scorched Earth, doesn't care anymore. Earth is too dumb to care about. It has no significant history. Brainiac's just going to scrap the whole thing, kill this last Kryptonian, move along. And so then we just get the final fight with Superman versus all of Brainiac's drones, which in my universe are all powered by kryptonite, because kryptonite is just an offshoot of uranium located in Krypton's core, and it makes a real good battery. It will power whatever you need for as long as you need. It's so good. Brainiac spent some time around the rubble of Krypton after it blew up, just collecting free energy. And on his way, he put kryptonite batteries in all of his drones. And so Brainiac coming to Earth and sending his drones to attack is also how kryptonite is then disseminated into the world. Clark and Brainiac battle each other. It ends in the Fortress of Solitude. There's just a big Brainiac drone with a chest full of kryptonite. It's opened its bay doors after realizing that this dude gets hurt by kryptonite radiation. It's there to finish him off. And as Clark is panting and gasping and dying, he asks the Jor-El AI what would happen if you took that sort of mind reading thingy that like updates AI stuff and put it on an AI. And Jor-El is like, exactly what you're thinking. And Superman just flies over there, grabs the drone, plonks the crown on its thing, and then the AI of Jor-El does battle with the AI of Brainiac and consumes it. Jor-El's AI was the superior intellect. And so now what exists is Brainiac 2.0, a hybrid of these two AIs. It has all of the immense multi-planetary records of Brainiac, but it is being governed by the governing body of Jor-El's AI. So it feels more like Brainiac, but it doesn't feel quite like Brainiac, so it calls itself Brainiac 2.0. And now Superman, he goes up, he grabs Brainiac's ship, he brings it down, it's integrated into the Fortress of Solitude, the crystals grow around it and then form that perfect Fortress of Solitude shape that we all know and love. Superman now has all that crazy alien technology for multiple planets. And unfortunately, during this fight, the suit that his mom made him got super destroyed. He's basically just wearing pants at this point. And he's quite sad about this whole thing. Like, he just lost his AI dad. The last thing his mom made him was burnt up and destroyed, and he's just real bummed. And as he's walking through this alien library of technology, he finds a fabrication machine that makes super graphene suits, which theoretically, if graphene could be made into fabric, it would take the strength of like 10 elephants balancing on a pencil, or no, one elephant balancing on the tip of a pencil to poke a hole through a sheet of graphene, like the thickness of paper. So I just took that and I said, okay, someone made fabric out of it. Done. So he finds a super suit making machine, and he boots the thing on, and he plugs in the design that he wants it to make, his mom's design. And it prints him an indestructible Superman suit in exactly the design his mom made, and he flies off into the world to be a superhero. That is the end of Superman movie. And Lex Luthor is super pissed off as an ending. I don't want to do post-credits in my universe. I just want to give it all to the audience up front. No.
You want to let the movie theater workers be able to clean the theater after the movie in peace.
Yeah. No, just let them chill. Like, everything's going to be fine. I'll give you guys stingers. I don't need post-credit scenes. I've solved that in phase 2. And Lex Luthor collects a bunch of kryptonite. Lex Luthor collects some blood that was dropped on a battle scene between Clark, as Clark was fighting one of these drones. The first time he gets cut across the face by some kryptonite, or by the Thing's blade as it opens up its kryptonite door. Lex Luthor collects that blood, a whole bunch of kryptonite, and his lead scientist, Anthony Ivo, is there standing next to him, and he's just like, oh, we're going to have a lot of fun with this. And we get credits. Obviously, Lex Luthor would not actually say we're going to have a lot of fun with this. Just the menacing Lex Luthor picks up a smudge of Superman's blood and smiles. We know what he's going to get up to.
You could sell me on that line if it's delivered well. Like,
I would need to see the Lex, whoever would end up playing Lex. I'd need to see him deliver it well, because I want, like, at least as terrifying as Clancy Brown Lex. I need that, man. He's so good. And that's the first Superman movie. It's done. It's the one I have the most thought out, so it's probably the one, and it's the first one where I dumped a lot of lore. So the summaries should get a little bit faster from here on out.
Travis, how you feeling? How you feeling
So,
after hearing it for the first time?
I know
Let me know if you need me to hit any clips. Let me know if you need any drops.
This universe is built on heroes have existed before.
Mm-hmm.
What level of hero? Because I feel like in terms of any kind of superpower, the DC world in particular, there's like, before Superman, after Superman.
Yes.
Kind of moments. So what does before Superman, like, the core always exists, but like, is there an Earth Green
I
Lantern
have no
yet?
idea how you have no idea how perfectly you just set up the segue here, Travis.
You're welcome.
It is the perfect segue. What does happen before Superman? Well, let me tell you, in my second movie in my DC Cinematic Universe, the Justice Society.
Sensational. That's his word.
I have a Justice Society trilogy in my DC Cinematic Universe that are all period pieces set before the events of the rest of the DC Cinematic Universe.
Which I fucking love. It
allows me to establish an entire canon of a superhero world that existed before the modern day superhero world, as metahumans have only just started appearing. I have my whole thing on why they just started appearing, but it took a long time to ramp back up to superpowers being a more common thing. And that starts really kicking in with like teenagers. The generation right after Clark is when metahumans start becoming a much bigger part of the population. The metahuman gene is in humanity, but being born with it active and having your powers is something that starts kicking on later, except for certain freak accidents and certain family bloodlines. So we start off the Justice Society set in World War II, and we begin on the island of Themyscira. Princess Diana and a lot of the Amazons are being brought in because their oracle is having a catastrophic vision. She is seeing the world destroyed at the hands of a terrible man and his army of a master race. Diana is chosen as the champion of Themyscira to go out into the world and stop this evil, because that is the only thing the Oracle foresaw as being able to stop it. She has to go out into the world, find her own group of heroes, and fight this vicious evil. So Diana heads out into the world of man for the first time, and it's World War II. As she's going around, she eventually makes it to France, and she sees, weirdly, what she can only describe as metallic automatons fighting a group of gods. She sees this group of people, a man with wings, a man with a golden helmet shooting magical bolts at people, a woman screaming sonic booms, a man flying in a white suit. He has laser vision. A man flying, and he's having green projections all around him, shooting out of some sort of weird ring on his hand. A man she can't even really track. She just sees a red blur fighting off these robots. A man with a weird yellow hood who is picking up tanks and hurling them across the battlefield. And then finally, a flying man. He's wearing red. He has a yellow and white cape and a large lightning bolt across his chest. She runs in, she helps these people defeat the robots, and they all get to talking. They ask her who she is, and she explains that she is Diana, Princess of the Amazons, here to save the world from evil. And they explain, cool, we're Task Force X. They are a division of the United States military formed of superpowered Americans who volunteered for service to fight in this war.
And Travis's face, you made the same fucking face I made, man. You had the same, oh fuck, he's cooking.
They are led by Captain William Batson, Captain Billy Batson, aka the Captain. He is their head, and their individuals are Dinah Drake. I only listed them as their superhero names, so now I have to remember off the top of my head. Dinah Drake, Kent Nelson. I forgot what. Bloodwind, Alan Scott, Jay Garrick, Rex Tyler, Billy Batson, and why am I forgetting? I'm blanking on Hawkman's name right now, and I don't know. Connor.
Man, Carter
Hall. Carter Hall. There it is. It is in there. Okay. Carter Hall. They are the Task Force X. When everything was going bad, they volunteered for service. They showed their superpowers to the United States military. The military made a whole division for superpowered individuals called Task Force X, and they are sent when stuff is going bad. And specifically, they are hunting down a Nazi superweapon known as the Ubermensch. They have not
just need
seen
to
it.
again reiterate that Warner Brothers owes you so much money that Black Adam went, hey, the Black Adam movie did this but backwards. Where they went, what if Amanda Waller, who famously runs Task Force X, also ran the Justice Society?
They did that, and then also the Wonder Woman first movie being set in World War I. I was sitting there, and I'm like, man, a period piece Wonder Woman movie. I'm like, come on. Very excited to see that one too, though. They are hunting down this weapon known as the Ubermensch. No one has seen it. Nazi communique on it is incredibly vague. They have only seen the aftermath of it, which is just fields of destruction, so many dead bodies. We don't know what it is. And then we, the audience, cut to another scene. There's a maybe 25-year-old blonde-haired, blue-eyed man in a uniform with a large black cape. He is sitting down. He is very nervous. His foot is tapping, and he's just breathing heavily. There's gunfire and bomb fire, and clearly a battle happening right outside this tent. There's another about same age blonde woman standing next to him. She is patting him on the shoulder, letting him know everything's going to be okay. And then an older German man comes and sits next to him with a large, thick black beard and glasses. And he sits down and he pats him on the back. And he goes, "My son, everything is going to be okay. You are the Ubermensch. You are meant for this. Everything will be fine. Go out there and show them who you are." And so Albrecht Krieger, a.k.a. Captain Nazi from old Billy Batson comics, stands up, but I am dropping the Captain Nazi name because I think it's dumb, and I am adopting instead Ubermensch Overman from Earth X, the Nazi universe.
Yeah.
And so I'm just stealing Earth X Superman's whole steez and just copy-pasting it onto this guy.
I do like what you said in your video about your Justice Society, or your Justice Society video, where you said that like the Allied forces would like jokingly refer to him as Captain Nazi.
Absolutely.
That
That was something I loved in the Wonder Woman movie. In no world can I see a scientist who commits herself to like perfecting toxins and poisons, unironically calling herself Doc Poison. But the Wonder Woman movie took that, and that was just what the boys in the trenches called her. And I'm like, absolutely, the boys in the trenches would call someone Doc Poison.
Yeah.
And so this dude, he is just referred to as the Ubermensch by the Nazis because he's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Superman who can fly and has super strength, all that stuff. And so when soldiers finally find out the reality of him, he's gonna just get called Captain Nazi. And Albrecht walks out of the camp, or walks out of the tent. Big orchestral music starts playing, and he takes off into the sky. The Allied forces stop because they've never seen a man fly before. They've heard of like Task Force X, but they've never seen this. And then he starts flying around the battlefield, just ripping tanks in half, killing guys left and right, just decimating everything. So we now know what's at stake. As this is happening, his father, Dr. Wolfgang Krieger, and a woman who, again, appears no older than the boy, Wolfgang puts his arm around this woman and says, "Our son is amazing." And so we just have to think about that for a little bit. We cut back to the Justice Society as we get just lovely sort of one of my favorite movies of all time is Saving Private Ryan. So I want this to be a very Saving Private Ryan-esque moving from battle to battle as we show the team grow closer thing, until eventually one of these automatons, one of these robots by the Nazi forces, has a flamethrower and just catches Bloodwind on fire. And Bloodwind screams bloody murder. A man they've been seeing flying around doing laser vision, phasing through objects, all that kind of stuff. He screams bloody murder and he shifts green and he turns into a monster as he screams, trying to put the fire out on his body. The Justice Society stop the robots and then comfort this guy, and he's not human. This is an alien. He shifts back into his human form and he turns around to them and he goes, "I have not been entirely honest." And so I took the character from the comics Bloodwind, and there's a run where he got replaced by Martian Manhunter. And I just took that. So his lie to the public was, "Oh, actually, this is my origin story, and that's why I have these superpowers." And he was not telling everyone, "I am an alien." And so now the Justice Society see this. He's feeling terrified. He's feeling like these people that he has come to refer to as friends and maybe even family are going to cut him out of their lives. And then all of the Justice Society start sharing secrets. Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, he just lets them know. He's like, "You know how I've been telling you all about my girl back home, Rose? So his name is Ross." And Hawkman takes off his helmet and says, "I'm 2,000 years old. I am an alien like you from a planet called Thanagar. I crashed here 2,000 years ago. And whenever I die, I am reborn. This is I don't even know how many bodies later." And my buddy Connor here, because the backstory I have for Kent Nelson and Carter Hall in this is that they were both archaeologists on the same dig who found a tomb of the pantheon of the gods and got superpowered relics from it. And he's again, my buddy Kent Nelson here. Yeah, he's possessed. That helmet is an Egyptian sorcerer named Nabu who possesses whoever puts the helmet on. So that's what's up with him. And then Billy Batson, Captain William, walks right into the center and says Shazam and turns into a 10-year-old boy. And they all stare at him in awe because that's the biggest one. Nothing was like aliens, sure, okay, cool.
Fuck the alien.
Wonder Woman's dad is Zeus. We're all rolling with this. That's a 10-year-old. And he's like, I'm a champion of a guy named Mamaragon, and he gave me the powers of some gods that he knew. And whenever I say the magic word, I turn into a superpowered adult. I turned into my adult form and enlisted in the military because I don't like bullies. And I was hearing all about the war and wanted to lie. And so that's it. He lied about his age using his adult form, and because like who wouldn't let Captain Marvel into the army back in World War II?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just like, okay, let me just test this. He ran the mile in 1 second. He's in, right? Like he's in. And so now the team is feeling a lot better. They've all sort of expressed vulnerability. They've let John know, like, we're not going to judge you because you're an alien. You're very welcome here. And apparently we have another alien with us.
Two questions.
Yes.
Is Jean the last son of Mars?
John is the last son of Mars. He is the
Okay.
last Martian that you all know of so far.
Well, yeah, because no one's ever really the last son of any planet. But
Yeah.
are we doing core Alan Scott or are we doing the green Alan Scott?
This is core Alan Scott. I've tweaked Alan's origins here. Alan has Ganfit's ring. I've tweaked how power rings work in my universe, not too much, but just to sort of explain their logic a little bit more. There are the rings forged from pure emotion, inspired by that run where Hal Jordan forged his own ring out of willpower. And then there are the duplicates of those that Ganfit had made. So Ganfit made little things that copy that stuff, and those are the ones that the core has. So you have to have immense will, and then the AI inside this ring will choose you to become a Green Lantern. Alan just found after a weird train crash, he found a ring and a lantern on this weird skeleton of he didn't know what, and it turns out that's Ganfit. I did kill off Ganfit. This is Ganfit's will-powered ring. This is an actual will ring. Alan Scott displayed immense will, and the ring chose him as worthy. And because it's a will-powered ring and not an AI-made ring by Ganfit, it doesn't know to contact home to let it know that there's a Green Lantern on Earth. So he has no knowledge of the Space Green Lantern Corps. And meanwhile, the Space Green Lantern Corps is like, where is Ganfit? That dude's just gone. Where is he?
He went to the gas station months ago.
He went off to fight some manhunters, and we haven't seen him since. So he's gone. He went to get space milk. And so the team is feeling much, much better about themselves. They feel really, really bonded now because they've all sort of shared their deepest, most intimate secrets with each other. And perfect timing because it's the final act and they have to go storm Wolfgang Krieger's lab. They want to figure out the whole reason Our Man is there is because he has his wonderful miracle pill Miraclo that he invented that gives him and only him superpowers for 1 hour. He can only take it once a day. He is the foremost scientist on giving humans superpowers. That's been his whole thing. His job for the military is to develop a pill that anyone can take. But so far, he's only had success with pills he can take because it's so specific to his DNA. He is there to find out what the hell Wolfgang Krieger has done to his son Albrecht to make him a flying, super speed having, super strength having, bullet invulnerable having guy. And they storm the final thing. They fight off the robots. These robots are built by Dr. T.O. Morrow, a Polish scientist who has been kidnapped by the Nazis and is being forced to make weapons for them. They fight through this final base. Everything's going good. They get to the lab, and Our Man is scouring over these records and finding nothing about genetics. Not a single scrap of paper at all says that any genetic work went into this. And then he is stabbed in the back by a very fancy Greek-looking sword. And as it's pulled from his dying body and he collapses, we see the blonde woman who claims to be Albrecht, Captain Nazi's mom, even though she looks the exact same age as him. In the room with Our Man during this big reveal was Black Canary. Black Canary screams at this woman, and this woman plants her feet and stomps through the concrete, walking through the Canary cry and snaps Dinah's neck. And it is at that moment that Diana, Wonder Woman, enters the room and sees this woman. And Wonder Woman knows who this is. This woman is Helen of Themyscira. She was an Amazon who about 100 years ago was sick and tired of living life alone on the island and said, why don't we just leave? Let's go. We are a team. We are a whole island. We're an entire army of superpowered women that could crush like a mortal man in our hands. Why are we not taking over everything? And the Amazon said, okay, get out. You're out of here. You're banished. Get off our island.
You've been voted off. That was sus behavior.
Yep. She was kicked out. She was cursed to walk the world of man by herself, and she eventually made her way to Germany, and she's a superpowered blonde woman who ran into a scientist named Wolfgang Krieger, and he was just like, yo, kid. And so they had a kid, and this kid got way more superpowers. Wonder Woman and Helen of Themyscira fight to the death. Captain Nazi and Captain Marvel fight to the death. Billy, this whole time, I would very much want to focus on Billy has been killing people in this. I'm adopting the 1930s aspect of DC where like even Superman was mowing down Nazis back in the day. However, I want to then apply that to when he shifts back to his kid form. He is then hit with the tremendous PTSD and guilt that would come with. So the adult Captain Marvel has everything he needs to tackle this sort of stuff and rationalize what he's doing. But when he zoops back to 10-year-old Billy, he's traumatized. This is horrible. This is so for a 10-year-old signed up for war, and this is the reality of what that does to someone. Billy's scared, and they defeat everyone. Wonder Woman kills Helen of Themyscira. Billy kills Captain Nazi, and then Wolfgang Krieger, the scientist who did all of this, is like, all right, screw you guys. You killed my wife. You killed my boy. Self-destruct. Screw you guys. I don't need any of this. Wonder Woman cuts his head off. They try to stop the bomb from going off, from destroying everything, but he's not an idiot. He didn't give him a 10-minute countdown. He gave him like 10 seconds. Or enough time for them to all sit around being like, what do we do here? This is not fast enough. We can't do anything. As they all try to hem and haw of what to do, Dr. Fate just opens up a portal, pushes everyone through, and puts a big old dome around the complex, and it blows up in a nuclear explosion. Wolfgang had a nuke. He'd cracked that. And the whole thing blows up. It's contained in this dome, covered by the Ankh of Dr. Fate. And when the dust clears and the radiation is magically dissipated because magic and all that stuff, all that is left in this huge crater, pile of ash, and an unscathed golden helmet. The Justice Society mourn their friend. They take this. We get a quick montage of them ending the war. Headlines abounds of like, Task Force X saves the world, all that fun stuff. And then the war is over, and they're all sitting around wondering what to do. And they decide to not stop helping the world. Like, why do we have to be in the army to do this thing? What if we started a team of our own? And so they all together found the Justice Society of America. And there it is. That's the Justice Society of America exists now in 1940s United States.
Travis, I have no idea how perfectly you timed that question. That is still very funny.
I am minorly disappointed that the Ubermensch didn't turn out to be Bigfoot, and the last member of the Justice Society didn't turn out to be Sam Elliott with a gun made out of a pen and an "I want you" poster.
Oh, the man who killed Hitler
TNAP listeners got that joke.
And I've seen that movie. I got that joke.
Good man.
You can't just say it's like, yeah, we have a movie coming out called The Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot, and it's Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
I'm like, of course I'm watching that. Day one, I'm watching that. You can't just say that. You can't put those words together and not expect me to go see it. As the Justice Society, we have established the world has seen superheroes before. Because this is only covering this episode only covers phase 1 of my DC Cinematic Universe. The payoff of what happens to the Justice Society and why aren't they around for all my stuff doesn't happen for a while. That is the final Justice Society movie. But we move on from the Justice Society to The Flash. Classic. And it's pretty classic Flash. We get Barry's origin. Barry and Iris are already living together and married. Just skipping right to it. He doesn't have to woo her. They have been childhood sweethearts forever. They got married right after high school, and they're still married. He has a job working for the CSI because he is trying to prove that his dad didn't murder his mom and that he's not seeing things and that a yellow whirlwind did, in fact, stab his mom. Barry gets hit by lightning in his lab one night, but it's weirdly a red bolt of lightning. And Barry goes to the hospital. He's in that coma. He wakes up. Everything seems fine. He they don't even actually finish getting him to the hospital. By the time the paramedics are loading him into the ambulance, his wounds have healed. He bolts up in the ambulance, totally fine. They do a physical on him, and they're like, okay, weird. Could have sworn I saw a burn on you when we were cleaning you up, but guess not. You're free to go. We don't have to take you to the hospital. Everything checks out. He goes home. Everything's kind of fine. He wakes up the next day. Just wakes up, alarm goes off, goes to the bathroom, turns on the shower. Water's not running. That's weird. Goes downstairs, puts some toast in the toaster. Toaster's not popping. Okay. Reaches into the fridge, grabs a banana, starts his daily jog to work because he was on the Central City track team back in high school, and he still runs all the time. Starts his run to work. He's running. He gets a bunch of green lights. He gets to one crosswalk, sees that there's a car stopped, but the light for him is red, and just decides to go. Gets to work. He's just going about his day, punches in. His centrifuge isn't working. The computers seem to be down again. Everything's just being real weird. And so he just does as much work as he can physically. And as he's finishing up some stuff, he looks up at the clock and he sees it has been 1 minute since he clocked in. After we just got a montage of him doing work. And he's like, okay. He just heads back outside, and that's when he notices no one has moved since he walked into the facility. Everyone is standing still. They've moved just a little bit. He runs outside, now panicking, thinking he's having a nightmare, and he sees a bird suspended midair. He runs home, fully freaking out. We see his entire jog to work done in reverse now as he runs back home, up the stairs, grabs Iris, and he shakes her awake, and suddenly noise comes back to the universe. We hear the shower turn on in the background, his alarm's still going off. And Iris is like, whoa, what's going on? What's with the shaking? And he thinks he just had a really bad dream. And so he goes downstairs, his toast pops out of the toaster. And so it's the first hint to him. They're like, nope, okay, I definitely put toast in the toaster. He resumes his jog back to work. Everything's running normal. He gets to work, finds all of his work done. And he knows he's not an idiot. He doesn't try to fool himself. He's like, okay, I did something. And then we'll get a lovely science thing of him trying to figure out what he did. How did he do this? What is going on? He has super speed. And while this is happening, we're introduced to a small group of criminals, or we'll just call the rogues for now. It is Mirror Master, Captain Cold, Heatwave, Golden Glider, and Weather Wizard. And I will now be adding, at the behest of my Discord, Captain Boomerang is in. He's back. I'm going to throw him in. You're going to get Captain Boomerang, everybody.
Listen, Rad, I don't know how to break this to you. Anytime the Flash is being depicted in something that isn't a comic book, it has to be Flashpoint.
Right.
I think you've forgotten that is the only Flash story you can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's the only one anyone knows. Also, my earbud cut out at the behest of. I don't know what was said after that. I will be adding
at the behest of my Discord. I have a Discord server. People come in and ask me a bunch about my DC Cinematic Universe, and a recurring question was, why no Captain Boomerang? And I didn't really have an answer beyond I just didn't think sort of thematically with the villains I'd set up in this one that his tech fit into it very well. But everyone wanted it, and I'm like, I can give a guy laser boomerangs. I can do that. Sure, you guys get Captain Boomerang. You'll pay for it later. And so these are the rogues. They've been doing crimes here and there. Most heists, they're a heist crew. But ever since Golden Glider has brought in her boyfriend, they've been really ramping stuff up. Her boyfriend, Evan McCullough, is a genius. He has invented some good stuff for them. He's a master of hard light technology. He can make perfect holograms that you can interact with. He can make a hologram that looks and feels like a person that can punch you in the mouth. And based on this, he's invented a handful of gadgets for these people. He invented essentially just a big old laser cannon for Heatwave, the Pyromaniac, and so it acts as a super flamethrower. It's like this thing can reach impossible levels of degrees of heat. He invented the exact opposite of that, a thing that sort of sucks the heat out of everything, a cold gun for Captain Cold. He invented a localized ionization sort of weather manipulating machine for Weather Wizard. And now laser boomerangs for the boomerang guy. It's like, cool, here's your boomerangs back. I gave him laser edges. They can cut through whatever. And so then they start going on really big, awesome heists through Central City, just robbing everything. He makes a lovely looking illusion so the place doesn't even look like it's getting robbed while they're robbing it. And meanwhile, they can just destroy and do everything they need as they rob Central City blind, and no one knows what's going on. And meanwhile, Barry Allen is trying to figure out how super speed works. He is reading up especially on Jay Garrick. He's watching interviews with Jay Garrick that we'll see and we'll recognize from the Justice Society movie. He is reading Jay Garrick's own research on his own body after he got super speed. He is trying to figure out how that Flash got his super speed. And one day while Barry is out for one of his nighttime jogs, he just sees a woman about to be hit by a car. And so he runs over, he grabs her, he gets her to the other side of the road, and he takes off. This was caught on security camera. It became a news story. And that woman that he saved was none other than, where is it? I always forget the names. It's Judy or Joan. It's Jay Garrick's daughter. He had her shortly after the war. She has grown up. She's about 80 years old now. And she was saved by this red blur that just swooped her out of the street and got her to safety. And she is on there and they're like, oh, hey, something that looks like your dad just saved you. How does that feel? And she goes, actually, it felt great. My dad used to take me on runs when I was a little girl all the time. And whoever that was, it felt exactly the same. It would be in honor of mine if whoever you are out there, if you would take on my father's mantle and become the new Flash. And she just puts that out into the world. And Barry sits there being like, whoa, that's a lot. That's a big thing. But he decides, yeah, Barry, it's a very much with great power comes great responsibility thing. He's like, I will try to be the Flash for you. And so he steps into the role. He makes a prototype suit and he heads out there to try and stop stuff.
This is the third time I've heard that beat. When I saw the video organically on TikTok, when I binged your DC Cinematic Universe and now on air, and every time I have gotten goosebumps.
Thank you. I wanted there to be a nice reason. I didn't want to keep Jay around as, at that point, a 125, 130-year-old man to be a mentor to Barry, despite a lot of people being like, you can just say he ages slow. I'm like, I get that I can, but I didn't want Jay to age slow. I think he should have a regular human lifespan as Speed Force are.
You don't have Barry doesn't need to have an Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, Barry doesn't need that. That isn't even a big part of Barry's comics. His relationship with Jay. That's a thing Stuff has been trying to do more recently, but we don't have. When Barry took over that mantle, there wasn't very much of a him and Jay relationship. And the same thing can be said for Hal Jordan and Alan Scott. There wasn't really a passing of the mantle. This was just sort of DC replacing the heroes. And I wanted to take sort of that theme of the replacement, but not just as a middle finger to Jay Garrick. I wanted Barry to recognize what he was doing. And so I thought, well, like him stepping into that, trying to say like, I'm the new Flash, I feel like felt a little too cocky for Barry Allen to just come out and say. And so I was like, someone needs to bequeath it to him. And so originally I was like, well, I'm like Jay's wife. And I'm like, she's also very dead. And I'm like, Jay's daughter, because after doing the math, if that movie comes out now, World War II was 80 years ago. So she's 80. She's like 70 or 80 years old now. So that's the woman he saves.
And I think it does work perfectly because I think like you said, there was never like a big relationship between Jay Garrick and Barry Allen baked into those characters. Mm-hmm. But like it does bridge the gap really well. And I think that idea of like that there is a sense of destiny in the stories you're telling, and I really do love that like that all of these people will be given the opportunity to ascend to greatness. They weren't necessarily destined to become legendary heroes, but like they were destined to be given the choice. Yeah, and I think like for like Spider-Man, for example, you made the great power, great responsibility thing. That's how I like I know people don't like, oh, like Peter Parker was destined to become Spider-Man.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily, I don't like that he's destined to become Spider-Man. I like that he's destined to be given the choice.
And that's one of my biggest things about superheroes is I love superheroes because they choose to do good.
Yeah.
That's not that they're forced to, because they want to. That's what I like. That's why Superman's my favorite superhero of all time. Why does he do all this stuff? Because he likes helping people. He genuinely, it makes him happy to help people. Makes him sad when he fails to help people. It's why I love superheroes. And so I want them to choose to become superheroes. Although ironically, the next project is the Green Lantern Corps, where that isn't. They are drafted, but they get there. They make the choice.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, as you were, I just fuck that beat with Garrick's daughter being be offering up the title was just perfection.
Barry goes on his superhero spree. He is saving the day. While all this stuff is happening, by the way, Barry and Iris's nephew Wally is staying with them for the summer. His parents are going through it, and it's probably looking like divorce right now. So he is chilling with his aunt and uncle, and he idolizes Barry. He and Barry are just total best friends, total bros. They play video games together. They love each other. And I want this little bit of thing. Wally has been diagnosed with ADD. And whenever we see him playing video games, he's doing if he's doing rhythm games or fighting games or anything, he is getting perfects on everything he does. Like this kid has the fastest reflexes you've ever seen, but in just little subtle ways. Barry does all of this superhero work and eventually comes face to face with the Rogues and starts messing up their plans. He doesn't catch them right away because Mirror Master is very good at whipping up hologram duplicates to distract the Flash while they get away. And the Rogues get super upset that this guy keeps screwing up all their stuff. And so they decide after a couple run-ins, you know what? Screw this guy. The Flash Museum, the Jay Garrick Flash Museum, is having sort of a re-inauguration because they're adding on exploits of this new Flash. They're making a big thing of like, hey, we revamped the museum. Please come stop by. There's a lovely big golden statue of Jay running along the thing in the front. That's why there's a museum. The Rogues go and attack the opening. And they're like, come on, dude. We are burning your predecessor's building to the ground. Bring it on. And Barry does. Of course he does. There's people in trouble, and these guys are burning down a museum. Barry runs in. They have their big final fights. Barry manages to use his powers of science to defeat all of the Rogues. The Rogues are defeated. The Rogues are arrested. But as the Rogues are being loaded into the truck to be taken away to prison, Mirror Master vanishes, and it is revealed that Mirror Master has just been a hologram this whole time. We cut for most of the movie. He hasn't actually been there. We see him. He has a beard. He has longer hair. He has been. We don't know when the swap happened, but Mirror Master has just been a hologram of himself for quite a bit. That happens. Before he vanishes, he looks to all the other Rogues, and he's like, "Don't worry, guys, I got this." Gone. And Mirror Master is gone. He escapes. And Flash is now being surrounded by people who are attending the Flash Museum opening. They're all cheering for him. Judy Garrick meets him in full costume, and she fully gives him her blessing, and she hugs Barry and thanks him for continuing her father's legacy, and says that Jay would definitely be proud. And that's the Flash. There we go. Flash has been set up.
Sensational. And that's his word.
A Flash project without a speedster villain.
I wish I could keep that momentum.
You're allowed to do it.
Yeah,
it's just like the fact that not a single season of the show was the Rogues. They never considered it for the film.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
No respect put on any of their names. Like, they're great. I love the Rogues. I think they're goofy little guys. I also like eventually when they adopt the whole thing of like, okay, maybe we won't kill. Maybe we'll be better villains too. I love these
Barry's
guys
such a
so
good
much.
hero that he rubs off on his villains.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're like, you know what? Like one of my favorite interactions, it's not a Barry interaction, but it's a Wally interaction from the Justice League animated series when Wally goes into that bar and the trickster is there and he's like, dude, he's like, yeah, okay. Again? Yeah. It's like, all right, I'll turn myself in. You got me again, Flash. Like just that lovely sit down talking like, okay, I'll turn myself in. Thanks for not having a fight about it.
I recently got one of those TikToks that's just like going over a random comic issue. And I don't remember what issue of the Flash it was, but it's like these villains at a poker game and they're talking about recent scores they got. And the one guy goes, yeah, I just got all this money. I'm betting in this game from Central City. And they all go, dude, no,
out,
no, come on.
Done.
Like, you can't mess with the Flash. And he's like, what are you talking about? It was so easy. It was the easiest thing ever. And he's like, you don't understand. He's been here the whole time. He's going to make you go to therapy.
Oh, I love that stuff. And one of my favorite, it's not a Flash moment now, but Batman, I think it was Batman Mystery of the Batwoman. That big dude who looks like Hun from the Purple Dragons of Ninja Turtles. He opens the door and Batman's in there. Batman just frowns at him and the guy closes the door. Yeah. Everyone's like, what'd you see in there? Nothing. And just leaves. It's like, no.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Oh,
sorry, Travis.
I would say, like, my one thing with the MCU is that there's this, like, the ground zero moment of Iron Man existing, right? In terms of the real world for us when the MCU started.
Yeah.
And then there wasn't a ton of effort put in at the time to build in the before times, right? Like we got Captain America.
Yeah.
And then there's this big lull. And then only more recently did we get Captain Marvel. And now you have 1945 to 1996, 92, wherever Captain Marvel takes place, of just unexplored territory. Right? And not having any
somewhere Ant-Man was doing bullshit during the Cold War.
Yeah, like at most we get that. And so going in with the plan of using that space, I think is brilliant.
Thank you. I wanted, I don't know if I can, I don't really want to talk spoilers or anything about it now, but I wanted a distinct separation between the generations of the Justice Society versus the Justice League.
Yeah.
I wanted all of those old classic characters, but the biggest thing about the Justice League and a lot of their characters is because they aren't legacy characters, but they establish their own legacies and they get in there. And it's weird to me that there'd be a universe where all of this stuff was like common and well known, and yet these people still somehow become it. Like, because I could have Superman crash back in 1938 and try to do a period piece Superman movie, which I would totally watch. But I want those modern day interactions with Clark. Clark is he's always been depicted as a modern day character, whereas the Justice Society especially has now become pretty firmly planted in they were the World War II superheroes.
Yeah.
So even the comics are trying to I guess it is literally retcons, retroactive continuity. They're establishing that these heroes that Superman fought alongside with are now actually, no, that was a while ago, or that was Earth 2, and all this different stuff's happening. And Superman lost a little bit of that sheen of he's the first superhero, but he doesn't though, because he's still, we have that meta knowledge that he is. He's the guy. The reason it's called superpowers, the reason the term kryptonite is like a colloquialism we all use for weakness. The reason superheroes wear brightly colored spandex suits or have capes, why most of them can fly, all of that stuff established by this one dude. He set the gold standard for what it meant to be that.
Yeah, and I do like the idea that like he may not be the first ever superhero in this universe, but he is the first of a generation.
Yes,
like of a class of superhero.
Yes,
I think is fantastic.
And especially, because you probably know the events of My Justice Society 3, we see why there's a generational distinction in between.
Yeah,
we get to see it.
Oh Lord!
Oh man, that one's fun. Anyway, we move
that's
on.
That's a word for it.
The Green Lantern Corps.
You keep talking. I'm gonna full screen you. I will be back again.
Yes.
Enter the Green Lantern Corps.
All right, the Green Lantern Corps in my DC Cinematic Universe is a television series because that is the only way I'm going to allow all 18 main characters to get enough screen time for us to care about them. Is a TV show. In season 1, we are introduced to Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, Jon Stewart, Joe Mullen, Sodom Yat, Sornik Natu, Nort, Jessica Cruz, and Tomar 2, Aricia Rab, Simon Bass. So many characters. They are all, the human ones of those are humans on Earth. The entire first episode would be jumping around the different humans. So Jessica, Guy, Kyle, John, and Simon, and Joe, showing what their lives were like and what big impactful moment it was that got them to enact so much will that a ring shot across the galaxy to choose them, to conscript them into the Green Lantern Corps. So the pilot episode would end with all of them being taken into space, where they are dumped on the middle of a barren alien wasteland, and standing in front of them is Kilowog and Hal Jordan as they welcome this crew in to the Green Lantern Corps. We find out this Hal Jordan, in my mind, was always going to be Nathan Fillion, and now he's playing Guy Gardner live action, which I adore. Hal Jordan,
As we all should.
As we all, he's going to do so good. In my universe, Hal Jordan was selected to become a Green Lantern back in the 90s. He was the first human to be selected by this artificial thing. And he was conscripted into the Green Lantern Corps and has been a Green Lantern for going on 40 years now. So he is an older man. I'm sort of taking the mentor part of Alan Scott from when he has had interactions with the Lanterns and giving that to Hal. And so Hal will also have the gray streaks on his side, like from when he was Parallax, except this Hal isn't evil. They explain that the Green Lantern Corps is in the middle of a war. Sinestro, one of the heroic Green Lanterns and Hal Jordan's best friend, discovered the yellow spectrum of energy and awoke the first yellow ring, the first person to awaken a negative emotion ring. And he took over half of the Lantern Corps with him. They quit. They didn't want to work for the Guardians anymore. They thought that a guild, or not a guild, a council of people who can't feel emotion governing an entire body ruled by emotion was wrong. We give Sinestro all of his points for why the Guardians are terrible and why he doesn't like them, and ultimately sort of prove him right. And Sinestro had enough. He slaughtered the Guardians. He took half the Corps. He poisoned half the rings with his yellow ring. And the Sinestro Corps is out there wreaking havoc across the universe, taking the power that should be theirs. And so because of this mass exodus of Green Lanterns, the Sinestro Corps killed a lot of Green Lanterns. And so there has been a mass conscription of Green Lanterns from across the galaxy. And that's why that is why 6 humans get recruited at the same time. Usually their rule is 1 person per planet, but it's the middle of war. They need as many people as they possibly can. And so we get Green Lantern Boot Camp. I want this one, again, with just like Saving Private Ryan, one of my favorite TV shows is Band of Brothers. I would want this to feel like Band of Brothers with the Green Lanterns. They are trained on how to be Green Lanterns. We get them going on little individual adventures, and we eventually get the big drama bomb that Sornik Natu of their platoon is Sinestro's daughter. So she was recruited, and now she is having to face this moral dilemma of, is she going to have to fight her dad and her cousin, Amon Sur, the son of Abin Sur, who went with his uncle Sinestro to join the Sinestro Corps. And we establish a relationship, very, very much a uncle-niece relationship between Sornik and Hal. They are on very good terms. They are both heartbroken at the betrayal of Sinestro. They don't really know what to do. I want to, throughout the season, I want to consistently reinforce Sinestro and Hal were best friends. They had that bond. They were like brothers. And ultimately, it was Hal's words about the Guardians sort of being hypocritical what sparked Sinestro's fanaticness. Hal accidentally lit the fire that turned Sinestro into Sinestro. And we I just want to see all these characters grow. We get a handful of other Green Lanterns: Lyra Amoto, Rain Kral, the Thanagarian, Aricia Rab, and we're introduced to Aya, the governing AI invented by Ganthet that runs the rings. If you have a ring, there's an Aya in your ring. There's a central Aya in the central power battery on Oa, but Oa has been taken over by the Sinestro Corps, and right now they're using the remote base Mogo. While this is going on, they confront and find the Indigo Lanterns. The Indigo Lanterns were found by Abin Sur during his journey, because he was trying to find a better emotional ring to help with all of this stuff. He believed that a ring based on compassion could be great. And during one of his adventures, he found the Indigo tribe on their home planet, where they had naturally awoken the Indigo power generations ago. This is a whole tribe of people that can wield the Indigo power just inherently. It's nothing big or special to them. And so he worked with them to try and figure out how to make compassion rings as a form of punishment. His goal was, if you put on a ring that is being pumped full of compassion energy, you eventually get compassion and you feel remorse for the things that you did. And Sinestro saw this as an awesome way to rehabilitate criminals who truly couldn't feel remorse or compassion for other people. And that was inspired by an episode of Star Trek Star Trek Voyager, when Voyager crashed into the ship and they injured a serial killer, and 7 of 9 fixed him, but her Borg droids were too good at fixing him, and so they fixed a neural pathway in his head because he had brain damage, and it gave him compassion. And suddenly we just got this amazing episode about this guy who'd committed atrocities being hit by the sudden realization of all of his actions. And I loved the little bit at the end of, I think it was Blackest Night, when Sinestro was forced to wear a compassion ring, and we see him crying as he's in chains with the Indigo tribe. And I wanted that. So my resolution to the Sinestro Corps war, after the Green Lanterns win the war, is Sinestro is forced to become an Indigo ring wearer. And he is imprisoned on the Indigo planet with them to feel bad about what he's done to the universe. And that is how his thing ends, because at the end, his niece, she couldn't kill her uncle. She couldn't do it. She didn't want to. She wanted to be better. This is where I dump a lot of the Green Lantern lore on this stuff. We get the lore of the Guardians. We get the lore of why they made these rings. We figure out that the Guardians' job in this universe is essentially Starfleet's job in Star Trek, of their policing warp-level societies and making sure that warp-level civilizations do not take advantage of and take over pre-warp civilizations. And so Brainiac, with this knowledge that the Green Lantern Corps existed, operated by hunting down pre-warp civilizations, staying off their radar. So that is why Krypton exploded on their watch. All that stuff. They're not bad at their jobs. There was just one guy who was way too good at his. I never liked the explanation that so much interplanetary destruction happened while the Green Lanterns are doing their jobs, because it's like, man, you guys really suck at being space cops. Like, every single one of you is like this level of power, and y'all can't stop Brainiac. Come on, guys. And so I wanted
a whole ass army. An
entire army of Green Lanterns couldn't stop a guy with a shrink ray. I mean, I get I'm being very dismissive of Brainiac in that, but like, come on, he's one dude with a big robot skull and a shrink ray.
One of you is literally a planet.
One of you is actually a planet. Like, come on, none of you can stop this dude.
One of you is literally a planet.
The Guardians have been replaced by a council of appointed Green Lanterns, the Lanterns that have been in the positions the longest. So it's Karina Vint, Lysandra, Hal Jordan, Lashor, Kilowog, Mogo. I've never seen her name said out loud, so I don't know if it's Zale or Zale. It's Z-A-L-E. Tomar Ray and Salak. So they're the governing. They've become the new Guardians. They're referred to as the new Guardians. They run the whole thing, but they run it with, humanoid levels of emotional intelligence. and get that humans sometimes make mistakes and all that stuff. So they're a good crew. And one person on my Discord suggested that they all get played by the cast of Firefly, since Nathan Fillion was my dream casting of Hal Jordan and Alan Tudyk was my dream casting of Tomar Ray, that the rest of the crew of Firefly can fill out all of the rest of them. And it works almost too perfectly.
Yeah, honestly.
And that's the first season of the Green Lantern Corps. We just get all that lovely groundwork for why space acts the way it does. And the season finale, the big end of this stuff, is we just get a little thing panning over the destruction caused by the Sinestro Corps, what this has done. The Green Lantern Corps is half decimated. They were the major patrolling force of the galaxy. The Thanagarian Empire is in ruin because they were attacked very brutally by Sinestro and some of his people. And then we cut to a planet where we see a very demonic-looking figure crawling out of rubble and just being surrounded by the dead of his own people. He falls to his knees and he is screaming. He is the last survivor of his entire home planet after being slaughtered by the Sinestro Corps. He is in a pool of his own people's blood as he begins punching the ground, screaming in rage. And he punches and punches and punches. And we hear a ping. And I wish I had the sound effect all queued up to go because I found the perfect ping. We hear this ping. It's the ping of a lantern ring awakening. And as he pulls his hand from the pool of blood on this man's finger is a glowing red ring. And that's the stinger for the season 1 finale.
Bum, bum, bum. It's Atrocitus.
Atrocitus! Who in my mind voiced by Travis Willingham. Absolutely. Every single day, all day, every day. I want Travis Willingham voicing big, angry, demonic dudes. I love him.
All right, Travis, how are we feeling so far? How are we feeling going through cinema right now?
In terms of the I was told that in a lot of ways you compile a lot of events into like package deals, and I like the idea that every time the Green Lantern Corps went, shit, we pulled the Earth one again, get him a new ring. You just did it all at once.
Just at once. I don't like it. There are 9. There's like 9 of them.
Yeah.
No one else has that. There's not 9 Tomar Rays walking around. No one. Every single time we get the Green Lantern Corps, we have Chip and Badge, and I'm pretty sure, off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure Chip died before Badge became a Green Lantern, or vice versa. Like they weren't lanterns at the same time. We don't have multiple of anyone, but we got 9 humans. What's with that? And so it's like now we have a whole bunch of everyone. Save the animators some time too, because they can reuse some models in the background of the same alien species. Like there you go. Done. There are multiple lanterns of multiple species because they were at war and they had to recruit people ASAP. So all of these lanterns are still worthy of their rings. They still exemplified the willpower necessary to wield them. I don't want to be dismissive of any of their abilities, and that's why I give them a whole TV series to show off how great they all are. They're going to all get plenty of screen time. They're all going to get plenty of respect. And this way we get all of the Green Lanterns, and no Green Lantern fan should feel very left out.
Have you seen the animated movie Green Lantern Emerald Knights?
Yes, I have.
That's the vibe. I like it.
That one was great. So many of those shorts were so good. And that is also, it is Emerald Knights, which is why I wanted Lyra Amoto as a central figure of my Green Lantern Corps, because she was so badass in that. I'm like, yeah, her immediately in. And then I have not yet seen Green Lantern, the animated series, the 3D animated one. I haven't watched that one yet. I'm going to eventually because I've seen just about every single piece of superhero media ever made, and I got to finish the last couple things I haven't. And at the best, once again, on my Discord, people really wanted, or no, this was before Discord. This was just TikTok comments. People really wanted Aya and Razor. I've found that they are big fan favorites from that. I'm like, I can do that very easily. It's like, what's her backstory? Oh, she's an AI that gains sentience and willpower? Dope. What's his backstory? Red Lantern. I got you. I can do that. There are so many things that when you do enough groundwork, fitting people in just becomes way easier. And then this moves on in my DC Cinematic Universe to Aquaman.
Oh, this is a banger. Oh, fuck yeah.
I love this. Is what started my entire DC cinematic universe. When I was 17 years old, I made a bet to myself that I could write an Aquaman movie people would want to go see, because this was very much at the height of Aquaman's just that dude who talks to fish.
Yeah, same
public-
powers. The SpongeBob core
Yeah.
was very strong.
The public does not see him as cool, and that was heartbreaking to me because I adore Aquaman. I
We
think
can
Atlantis
use
is
the
awesome.
whales.
Exactly. I didn't want the disrespect on Aquaman to continue, and so I decided to do an Aquaman movie. And then after a while, I was like, kind of a shame this Aquaman isn't interacting with any other superheroes. And then my brain spiraled, and I'm 30 completed projects in and like 60 to go.
Oops, I hyperfixated again.
Oops, I did a universe.
I mean, honestly, the piece of content on this channel that I'm the most proud of, the Fandom Menace and how we got here, that is exactly how that went from I was going to do a guest spot on a friend of ours show talking about the weird relationship between the alt-right and fandom culture. Because he was like, you know a lot about this. I want to have you on the show. And that exact verbiage of I had an idea and then I spiraled out of control. Turned into, hey, can it be a 2-part crossover and it goes into both of our feeds? Because like I just did like 3 days worth of research and wrote an entire historiography about Gamergate, and I need to do something with this.
And I don't have a therapist, so you're it, man.
Therapist, and I don't know a single person who wants to hear me talk about Gamergate again. So I'm going to make everybody who listens to us listen to me do a full timeline breakdown.
There's also, I feel confident enough saying this. There is no movie I hate more in the world than Man of Steel. I'm still angry about it, and
You're
it's been
a good company to say that, my friend.
Decade. My friends knew I actively complained about that movie for years after seeing
Cheers
it.
to that.
And it's still, if I talk about it too much, I get actually genuinely heated about it. And there are a lot of points I have in some of my movies that are direct middle fingers to that movie.
I've noticed
that's
that.
exactly
I mean,
how I feel about BVS.
Yeah.
I'm not quite as hateful. Like, obviously, I don't like it, but I hate BVS a little more.
Man of Steel started a decade. It was the kickoff of a decade of Superman disservice that did more public damage to the image of that character in people's minds than anything I've ever seen, and has spawned the most hateful fandom I've ever witnessed, that really just want some super powerful guy murdering everyone because he likes murder. And it's just heartbreaking because he's the nicest character. His point is that he's nice. He's nice. No one complains when Spider-Man's nice, but Superman's nice, and suddenly everyone's like, well, he can fly.
Well, I mean, the Spider-Man fandom has gotten increasingly more insufferable. I will say, like, we there has been a bit of a critical mass of like Peter Parker is not miserable all the time, and therefore his character has been destroyed.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. You're right. There's like the thing that I think is so maddening for me about like and you have a lot of movie to talk about, so I'll keep this brief. The most frustrating thing about like the era of whack ass Superman shit that got kicked off with Man of Steel for me is that like there are two evil Supermen who are more captivating, fascinating, like well constructed characters that are like so weird and complex as individuals that not to say that Superman is simple as a character as a pejorative, but like something is like that should be as unfuck upable as Superman like has been left in the dust, and now we have like this very well formed metaphor for radicalization in Homelander. And this like really enthralling villain in Omni-Man that it's like, how did we get like amazing depictions and like upgrades from the source material of these two characters
Yeah.
before we had a serviceable fucking Superman movie in the 20 teens and 2020.
Mm-hmm.
How in the fuck did we
It's
let this happen?
the double whammy of Man of Steel being immediately followed up by Injustice. 2013 was my 13th reason.
I defend Injustice. I like Injustice a lot. I like the story. I like the universe.
I adore Injustice.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
have-
what
I have
it
a lot
did.
of friends who
Did,
dislike it.
yeah.
I have a lot of I know a lot of people who dislike it, and I use a similar verbiage to Injustice that I use when talking about Andor. That Andor, Star Wars as a franchise is like predicated on hope. And Andor, despite it being bleak and kind of desperate at times in tone, it paints in a negative space of hope because we know how the story ends. We
Yes.
know that this like kind of vagrant scum fuck named Cassian Andor is going to accidentally set off a chain of events that leads to the Emperor dying twice.
Mhm.
And you know that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And Injustice is kind of that, but backwards, where like we get to meditate on why Superman is amazing by watching him just so tragically fall from grace.
Mhm.
And see the people he did inspire rise to the occasion of cleaning up his fucking mess.
It was I adore Injustice. What I don't like is just the reputation it created for Superman. I was at a Comic-Con talking about how Superman was my favorite superhero, and some random person from the crowd screamed at me that I was terrible because Superman's a child murderer. And I'm like, Superman has killed 4 things canonically. 3 of those are in question. What are you talking about? And they're like, Billy Batson. I'm like, from Injustice? That wasn't that was Injustice Superman. And there's like, no, that's Superman. I'm like, well, I'll give you the technicality that it was a dude called Superman. But like, even just lacking the fact that, like, did you forget the end of Injustice when good Superman comes and beats up evil Superman?
Good Superman kicks his dick in for that reason.
It's like, are you like, did you not finish what you're talking about?
He likely
got the
didn't.
end. The guy won.
It's like, no, I got stuck on that one Joker fight and I didn't get to the end. I just saw him lobotomize Billy and then called it a day.
I put a hole through my Xbox and forgot it ever existed.
Anyway, Aquaman.
Inspired by Shakespeare and Game of Thrones, I want this Aquaman to feel like fantasy underwater. I want this to be royal struggles, political struggles, Shakespearean stuff, brother overthrowing brother, all that fun jazz. We start off following Atlanta, the soon-to-be crown queen of Atlantis. She is on the run from a crazy abusive husband, a man named Orvax Marius. She has already had a son with him by the name of Orm, and she is leaving because her husband's crazy. He is abusive, he is violent, he has genocidal thoughts about the surface world. She runs away. She can't deal with it anymore. And he's been radicalizing Atlantis during this time. The people of Atlantis are getting very keen on the idea of overthrowing the surface. She runs away. And she runs to the surface, and she happens to run into the love of her life, Thomas Curry, local lighthouse operator, who sees a vision walk out of the water, the queen of mermaids. They fall in love. They have a child. They're living a quite happy life together. And then Volko shows up. Volko is the head of the Atlantean Royal Guard, and he comes to inform Atlanta that he has just killed Orvax. The Atlantean Royal Guard in my world, the head of the Royal Guard, their job is to kill the king or queen if the public demands it. That way, this prevents evil dictatorships from gaining foot. It keeps the monarchy in check. It is their version of checks and balances.
It's the 25th Amendment, but metal as fuck.
And Volko was ordered by the people of Atlantis, all of the kings and queens of all of the other kingdoms of Atlantis, because Atlantis is the name of all of the kingdoms of the ocean, and there are 7 kingdoms under the ocean, Poseidonus being the capital kingdom. The High King is the role that governs everything else, very Game of Thrones-esque. He has just killed Orvax, and Atlantis needs Atlanta back. she agrees to go for the good of her people, because now that that lunatic is gone, she thinks she can actually do some good. She has to leave her husband and her son on the surface, because bringing a half-breed to Atlantis right now would be a death sentence. Atlantis is too violent right now. So she goes to try and do her best to de-radicalize her people. And we leave, and she leaves. So Arthur then grows up not knowing who his mom is. He chalks his superpowers up to, he's heard of superpowers before. He knows what Task Force X and the Justice Society were. And his dad insists his mom's a mermaid. When he asks about his mom, his dad tells him, your mom was queen of the mermaids. And Arthur has chalked this off as, oh, I'm a little kid, and he's just telling me a fun story he wants to tell me. My mom probably just left, and he's sad about it. No, quite real. As Arthur very unfortunately finds out, as one night during a storm, a group of stealth-clad assassins from Atlantis come to kill him. We get 3 Atlanteans. They kill Thomas right in front of Arthur, and they close in on Arthur to kill him. But as one person is about to grab the boy, Volko shoots up out of the water. The head of the Atlantean Royal Guard wears the gold and the green. So Volko shoots out of the water, pendant in hand, hurls it at this guy, takes him out, pins him to the back wall, saves Arthur's life, and tells him, like, I'm Volko. I work for your mom. We have to get you to Atlantis right now.
Now, I just want to say, as much as I do love your Aquaman movie,
Mm-hmm.
there is one thing you will never be able to surpass with the one we got in 2018, and that is the fact that Thomas Curry is played by Boba Fett.
And the 2018 Aquaman movie did a lot really well. I like a lot of that movie. Here I was trying to write a whole movie to make Aquaman badass when all I had to do was cast Jason Momoa and change nothing.
I have beef with Patrick H. Willems, and I have beef with Zack Snyder. But if there's one great point that Patrick Willems ever made, it's that despite Zack Snyder's fans being very problematic at times, the balls on that man to take the most Aryan-looking fucking superhero and cast somebody of Momoa's descent to play the water superhero, baller fucking decision.
And he looked so good. And then just the fact that, like, we got obviously the Snyder version of what Aquaman's suit should look like in the other movies. And then James Wan took over and went, y'all want comic accurate? I'll give you comic accurate.
You want
Homeboy?
You want Homeboy in the Mermaid Man fit? Bet.
And it looked so good. Like, it was staggering how good he actually looks in the actual classic gold and green. And so Volko whisks Arthur back down to Atlantis. Arthur is introduced to his mother. She tells him everything about why she had to leave. She apologizes to him, and she tells him that he was brought here because they got wind that assassins had found out he existed and were going to go kill him. And now that his dad's dead, she figured bring her son back down here, and they've concocted a backstory for him that she fell in love with an anonymous Atlantean in some other kingdom and had a son, and so they change his name to Orin, and so we get his classic second origin story name, that he's Orin of Atlantis. And so he goes by that name. He's introduced to his older brother Orm. In this case, I swapped the birthrights, and Orm teaches his little brother all about Atlantis, totally buddy with him. Like, hey, Bal, I'm going to show you all how this works. It's so cool that I have a brother. I can't wait for us to be best friends. And Arthur grows up. He eventually joins the Royal Guard when he becomes a teenager. He works his way through the ranks of that. And eventually he's a decently high-ranking Royal Guard. He works very closely with Volko, who has become sort of a father figure to him. And Orm is being groomed to take over the throne from Atlanta one day. As Arthur's popularity grows, and as he becomes the second up in the Atlantean Royal Guard, he dons his silver and blue uniform, as that is just what all of the other guard members wear. The gold and green held back for the head of the Royal Guard. So we get silver and blue Aquaman for a little bit because it's supposed to be stealthy and underwater. The people of Poseidonus start loving this guy. Like he's kicking butt. He's being a real good guard. He gets assigned to guard the High Mage of Atlantis, who is just the number one magic caster under the water. And he has an apprentice by the name of Mira. And so he is spending a lot of time guarding this dude and spending a lot of time guarding the dude's assistant. And he and Mira start hitting it off. Mira herself is the second-born princess of the kingdom of Zebel, which is a kingdom up to the north. And they start hitting it off pretty famously. Eventually, when Aquaman is just out on regular patrol, he witnesses an act of piracy. He sees actual human piracy happening up there, and he cannot help himself. He has to go stop it. He has not forgotten where he came from. He is part human too. He can't let this abide. He goes up there, he stops it, he leaps back into the water. He got it done real fast. He's like, I got this. No one's going to know what happened. Those people are safe. We're all good. Security cameras. He wasn't thinking. Security cameras got him. And viral footage of the Aquaman starts going, just sets on fire. Like, this dude leapt out of the water, did a whole bunch of cool stuff, controlled the water, and leapt back in and swam away. Atlantean spies on the surface see this, report this to Atlana, and Atlana drags Arthur into her quarters to scream at him because he has just exposed Atlantis to the surface world. And he gets into an argument with his mom on this. He explains, he's like, look, I'll continue living the lie that you guys have concocted for me that I am just some other Atlantean guy, but I'm not going to deny the fact that I am half human. And I'm going to do this sometimes. If I see something happening, I'm going to go stop it. And you either have to accept me for being your half-human son, or I'm just going to leave. I don't need this. He's like, I can abandon this whole thing. I am from the surface. And Atlana's like, okay, that is unfair of me. I have been forcing you to repress that entire half of your culture for this whole time. Okay, you can do that, but please stay safe. So he does. He fits in every now and then ocean-themed crime fighting. And stuff goes viral on the surface, and the spies report back down that, hey, the surface really thinks this dude's cool. The surface has been seeing footage of this guy stopping stuff. They are kind of loving, really digging his whole vibe. And Atlana is seeing this as like, hold up. This might be very good for us. Like, we might be able to use this as like a peaceful sort of introduction to the world if they see us as people who want to help. This could be very, very good. She's like, this could be great. And the people of Atlantis love Arthur too, especially because he looks exactly like Poseidon. There are statues of Poseidon all over Atlantis, especially Poseidonus, because the origin in my universe is Poseidon, the Greek god. His followers were being attacked one day. They were being slaughtered for their belief in Poseidon because he was being too nice to the kingdom of Poseidonus, which was just, it was this lovely big kingdom built on the shores of Greece. And he was favoring them too much, and other kingdoms felt that Poseidon was being unfair. So they took it out on the followers of Poseidon. And seeing this, Poseidon saved his people. He gave his life. He used his immense powers of oceanic control. He tore Poseidonus from the shores, dragged it to the middle of the ocean, and split his godly power amongst all of his followers, instantly mutating them into super strong ocean living beings. And the kingdom of Poseidonus sunk and was then ruled by his son, and then that guy's kid in turn, and an unbroken chain of descendants of Poseidon have ruled over Poseidonus, which then expanded. King Atlan eventually founded Atlantis proper, and as more kingdoms grew, the high king role came into being, all that fun stuff. So it's all descended from the Greek gods. And when I say Arthur looks exactly like him, I mean the same actor would play him. Just straight. I'm not messing around with it. He would just have black hair and a black beard when he's Poseidon, and blonde hair and blonde beard when he's Aquaman. Bada bing, bada boom. He looks totally like him. The people of Atlantis with their radical ideas of like following the children of Poseidon are loving this. And the people on the surface think this dude looks really cool because he keeps fighting crime and whooping ass and being nice.
Good shit.
And this infuriates Orm, because then we are revealed that, of course, yeah, Orm was the one who sent the assassins to kill his brother. Orm, when Atlana left to be with Alana left and ended up being with Thomas and having Arthur, Orm was left alone with his incredibly racist dad. And Orvax instilled all of his beliefs into Orm. Orm thinks humans are disgusting. He thinks they're all violent monsters because they attacked Atlantis and forced them to go underwater anyways. Humans pollute the oceans. It wasn't enough that they banished them to the oceans. Now they're poisoning the oceans with them in there anyways. Meanwhile, they're literally a race of super strong fish people. He hated this. And then when he found out that his mother had the audacity to breed with one, he couldn't just the knowledge that there was the blood of Poseidon in a human disgusted Orm to his very core. He ordered people to go murder him. But Volko caught wind, not enough wind to figure out who ordered it, but enough wind that someone had figured it out. And Orm has been unable to kill his brother since his brother got to Atlantis because Volko's just kind of been right there the whole time. Volko is very good at his job of being head of the Royal Guard. But Orm is just like, whatever, I'm going to be king one day. It's all fine. We're good. And then Orm overhears his mom talking about how maybe they should skip the line of succession and make Arthur the crown prince of Atlantis. He's hitting it off with Mira. That's a good political marriage they got going. The people adore him, and the surface adores him. This could be the leader they need to introduce Atlantis to the surface peacefully. Orm hears that, and no, that's it. He orders assassins to kill his brother and his mother. He gets more assassins. Unfortunately, he really underestimated his brother. Aquaman very publicly thwarts this assassination attempt that is perceived on the entire royal family. So now Arthur is seen as an even bigger hero than he was before, so much so that Volko announces his retirement and passes the Golden Green on to Arthur. So Arthur is now the head of the Royal Guard. Everyone loves him. He's seen as the greatest hero Atlantis has had in generations, and the people of the surface think this dude is the coolest. So Atlana goes through with her plans to try and make Arthur the new king. And so before that can happen, Orm just walks outside, tells the world, my brother's half human. My mom ran away. She left my dad. She bred with a human. He's half human. He has been this whole time. And the surface knows about us because of him. And he gets everyone. He gets so much of Atlantis up in arms about this. Atlantis is very torn. They're very angry at the surface. Orvax's teachings are still all out there. And Orm just starts capitalizing on all of it. And then he drops the bomb that Atlana was going to skip the line of succession and make his younger brother the king. And so he says no. He takes the crown. He says, I'm the rightful king of Atlantis, and if you believe that, you'll follow me as we go attack the humans. And so he takes the vast majority of Atlantis' forces to go and attack the humans, and he attacks none other than New York City, an actual real-world city, not just a fictional one. And so he attacks, and using the power of Poseidon's trident, which has been sort of the crown, basically, he uses it to control the oceans and flood New York. New York is flooded. It is hit by a giant tsunami. There is death and destruction everywhere. There, like 3 stories are flooded. And Arthur manages to speak to the rest of Atlantis and convince them to follow him. He says that this isn't right. This isn't what they're doing. Yes, he exposed them to the surface, but the people of the surface like him. If the first impression of Atlantis is Atlantis destroying them, then the humans will view them as the monsters that Orm and Orvax believe the humans view them as anyways. He says this is a self-fulfilling prophecy that Orm is doing right now. This will actually be the destruction of Atlantis if we don't go do something. So they all head back up. Atlana and her son and Volko all go up to attack the forces of Atlantis, and we get an Atlantean fight. And while this stuff is happening, Superman shows up. He is there. He is helping people, and Superman and Aquaman have just one little scene together where Superman's like, hey, I'm going to go stop this. Aquaman stops him and says, I have to be like, look, man, I don't know what your deal is, but this has to be stopped by me, or else it will mean nothing. And Superman is like, I don't like this, but I'm going to give you like 10 minutes. I'm going to go keep saving people. And if you can't get this wrapped up by then, I'm stopping your brother. And he goes and is Superman off in the back. Just a quick little cameo. Just like, oh, a whole city was being destroyed. Yeah, Superman's there. He didn't just ignore that an entire city got flooded. Aquaman and Orm have their big fight. Orm has a big fight with Atlanna and kills her for daring to sully the blood of Poseidon. And that is when a lot of Orm's extremists are like, whoa, okay, bud. You killed, she was still technically the queen. Like, we were following you to do all this stuff, but like, dude, you just did like one of our biggest no's. And then he goes on his really crazy rant of, wanting to exterminate humanity, wanting to reclaim the entire thing. And a lot of his followers are like, not exactly what we saw. Like, this was much more of a get him to stop polluting the oceans, get him to stop trying to kill us type thing. Not so much genocide wasn't on our table. And then because of this, the people of Atlantis turn to Arthur, the head of the Royal Guard, and they say, hey, Royal Guard, we need you to kill the king. And Arthur says, no, not killing my brother. Instead, he defeats Orm, unfloods New York. Superman then fixes a lot of New York, and I'm considering even the Flash shows up just to fix stuff with super speed. Arthur then publicly just goes to the UN, establishes like some communication with the UN of like, hey, we're a whole nation under the ocean. We exist. And this was an unprovoked attack by my brother who was the king. We'll pay for it. We'll do whatever needs to be done to earn you guys' trust back. And as a sign of good faith, here's my brother. Your justice system can deal with him. That is my ruling as the new king of Atlantis. You take him. And the world is like, that's Aquaman. That's the Aquaman guy. He's the king of Atlantis. Atlantis is real? And Aquaman's its king? And so it's just this big public thing. A lot of good faith is restored in Atlantis. A fair amount not. And Orm is imprisoned and locked away in Belrev Penitentiary. And that is the end of the Atlantis of Aquaman movie.
It amuses me greatly to imagine Orm flopping around like a fish on the floor of the UN.
Oh yeah, you gotta water him every 20 minutes or he will die. So Orm is imprisoned in Belrev. This is, I think, the first time Belrev gets mentioned in my universe because this is the first instance of a super-powered criminal needing to be held. The rogues were not powered, so they went to regular prison. And that's Aquaman. That is the Aquaman movie. And we move on to the Static Shock movie. This one is a very, very quick summary because I don't know if you've noticed this. I'm pretty Caucasian. I don't feel like writing a movie about the struggles of a youth growing up in gang culture would ring very true coming from me writing it. So all I have is literally just like bullet point plot bits that I would want the movie to hit on, which is
Keep
just
talking. I can hear everything. I really have to pee.
Yeah, got you.
I'll be back.
We established Dakota's gang culture. Virgil is being pressured to join a gang run by Ivan Evans, especially after Ivan Evans saves him from a beating by the racist bully Francis Stone. Richie is Virgil's best friend, and he is gay, but he's worried about coming out to his very conservative father. Robert Hawkins is threatened by Ivan, so Static goes to this gang meetup. Static was planning on just ditching this meetup that he was asked to go to by Ivan, but when Robert gets home from work, he just says, like, hey, there was this weird purple car outside my office just sort of revving its engine for a couple hours today. How weird is that? And Static knows that was Ivan's car, and that was a threat against his father's life. So Static gets to the gang meetup, which turns out to actually be Ivan's gang was going to kill their rival gang, of which Virgil was a part of. Or not Virgil, Francis was a part of. So Static shows up late to what turns into a shootout between these two gangs. The police arrive, and they fire experimental gas grenades at them. A thick gas spreads throughout the crowd, affecting everyone, including Virgil, but no one sees Virgil get infected by it. Virgil runs home and spends a night painfully sick in bed, and the next morning, stuff is static clinging to him, and we get that classic Static Shock opening montage from the cartoon where everything's just weird and clinging to the guy. Virgil and Richie are ecstatic that he has developed superpowers, and they practice them together. Ivan, meanwhile, Ivan and his gang, a handful of them have developed superpowers. It is revealed that anyone who had the metagene that was hit by this gas had that metagene activated. And so Ivan Evans, his younger brother, and a handful of their gang have been mutated into metahumans, along with Francis Stone from the other gang. He gets his flame superpowers and turns into Hot Streak. The meta breed decide to go big. Now that they have superpowers, they figure they can get fucked with way less. And Francis Stone, being the only one from his gang to get superpowers, goes on a violent crime spree of his own. Static goes to stop him, establishing Static as a hero. Richie eventually does come out to his dad, and his dad throws him out of his house. Richie goes to stay with the Hawkinses. And when Richie's dad comes over to the Hawkins house to scream angrily, we get that absolutely amazing speech from Robert Hawkins that he delivered to Richie's dad from the animated series, which I encourage everyone to Google, and you can just look up Robert Hawkins talks to Richie's dad. It's going to be the very first thing. There's an amazing thing about how his dad is an idiot for letting his own bigotry get in front of loving his amazing son. So Richie now lives with the Hawkinses. Pretty classic Virgil training to become a superhero, deciding on his costume, becoming a superhero. Good guys win, bad guys lose. The meta breed are locked up, except for Rubber Band Man, Ivan Evans' younger brother, who escapes. And Robert finds out Virgil is Static in a very Aunt May at the end of No Way Home, or at the end of Homecoming. He finds out his son has Static Shock, and he decides to sit him down to have a serious talk with him about his uncle, Jefferson Pierce. Jefferson Pierce, of course, being Black Lightning. That is one I would probably catch some flack for. I made Static and Black Lightning related in my universe because I always hated that there were these two superheroes that had the same name convention, the same color scheme, the exact same superpowers, and had nothing to do with each other whatsoever. In a world where we've already established by the existence of Anissa and Jen that the Black Lightning superpowers are genetic. They are passed down. The powers pass on. And so it just infuriated me that they had, like, that would be, to me, it's like if someone called Duper Man showed up and was wearing, like, had a big H on his chest and was like, oh yeah, I'm also an alien from a world that blew up named Schmipton. Like, it was too similar to me, and always irked me that they had absolutely nothing to do with one another. Because even the Flash was like, no, they got hit by the same thing. They both got the exact same superpower from that weird external origin. So to me, to consolidate this is especially the biggest thing. Black Lightning very famously has a dead sister. At least he did before New 52. His sister was killed and he blamed himself for it. Static Shock, also before the New 52 and before Rebirth and all stuff, had a very famously dead mom. And I was like, that's the easiest connection I could ever make right there. Is just, that's the same person. And so I did it.
No
I
one
think
can
it
stop
works.
him.
I think it works. I would even go so far as to, like, maybe imply that, like, Static is aware of the lineage, and that could inform his choice of color scheme.
I'm hoping to have some references to Black Lightning, because Black Lightning in my universe, as we find out in the sequel, he wasn't the biggest hero yet. He was very much sort of like a neighborhood type hero.
Yeah.
Some people had heard about him. He'd been doing some good stuff, but he wasn't on the scene for very long. And some people suggested I scrap the genetic relation altogether and just make the second movie about Static trying to hunt down Black Lightning. But I figure this just really streamlines things and lets a whole movie develop with this relationship. If I started off with, like, Robert sitting his boy down being like, yeah, you got your superpowers from your mom's family, and
Yeah.
your uncle was Black Lightning. And we then move on to the Suicide Squad. In the nearly 80 years since World War II, Task Force X became the United States military's operation for superpowered individuals. After the sort of stigmatization of superpowered individuals and the fear that we eventually learn about in the Future Justice Society movies, superpowered individuals really stopped joining the military. But the military still very much wanted superpowered people. And so they made Task Force X. And eventually Amanda Waller took it over. And her genius idea was to take this abundance of superpowered villains that they'd been finding recently and threaten them. Have them do their deadly missions that they need superpowers for, with the threat of death and the reward of a reduced sentence should they survive the mission. It has gained the nickname the Suicide Squad since then. Amanda Waller recruits Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, Killer Croc, Kite Man, Deadshot,
Hell yeah.
Captain Cold,
It's an
Golden
impulse.
Glider, Heatwave, Weather Wizard, and now, yes, Captain Boomerang are all recruited by Amanda Waller. Their tech, all of their whole thing is perfectly suited for a mission she needs them to do. Recently,
I'm going to interject real quick. I want you to
Yes.
know this was the one that made me go, I need to have you on my podcast.
oh, lovely.
And it's for exactly the reason you think.
Luke Skywalker shows up.
Yes.
Yeah.
How did you know?
Why'd you pick Luke?
The Star Wars character. I mean, like, if I wanted to be specific to you, I would have said Ben Solo. But like,
That's so funny. Like, yeah, sure, I'm still in. I'm about 1,000%. It's so funny. Sorry, continue.
You are all good. Amanda Waller has gathered the team because the country of Markovia, their royal family, people in line for the throne, have suddenly been dying off. She is worried that this is an attempt by Count Werner Vertigo. He's like 37th in line for the really distantly related to the royal family. She is worried that it is Count Werner Vertigo vying for the throne and killing people off. He's expected to be linked to the abduction of the Princess Tara Markov, which happened a couple of years ago. And he has very publicly stated that Markovia should be a haven for metahumans, that metahumans from all over the world can run to Markovia if they want to feel safe. And there's a metahuman trafficking ring being run out of the country of Bialia, which Vertigo has very public connections to. Amanda Waller does not want this. She wants the task force to go in, stop whatever it is, prove that Vertigo is the one doing this, and just take him off the board. Any means necessary. She doesn't care. Count Vertigo cannot take over the country of Markovia. The Task Force X all get to come up with stupid, fun, fake identities and fly over to Markovia and sneak across the border. And then it's very much a sort of spy thriller with this team as they try to find out who's been killing these people. We are establishing Harley and Ivy in this movie. We're introduced to them for the first time in this universe, but we established that they've existed. They've been around. And they flirt a lot in this movie. They refer to each other as best friends, but we all know what's going on.
Very, very nitpicky.
She's
question
Ivy's
about
buddy.
Harley.
TM.
They were roommates.
This is before they know what their feelings really are.
Is Harley just out of pure curiosity?
Yes.
I think this extends to your Joker as well, which I love. Are we going bleach skin or
Nope.
Or
regular Harley puts on makeup.
okay?
Does make no bleached skin Harley. I don't like perma clown Harley. I believe that should be reserved only for the Joker.
That was my next question. Is
yeah.
Joker perma?
Joker is permaclown. He got the permaclown.
Okay.
Harley is not. She did face makeup. That was the love story I've concocted for them is based off of the novel Harleen by Stephen Sedgwick, which I recommend everyone go read. I think it is the quintessential origin story for Harley Quinn. I would change nearly nothing about it to adapt that into my own DC cinematic universe. It is spectacular, showing how she fell to those depths and how Joker completely manipulated her. She is just as much of a victim as any other of Joker's victims. She and Ivy became friends in prison. She used to be Ivy's psychiatrist before being herself admitted to Arkham after a psychotic break because she was complicit in the murder of 700 people perpetrated by the Joker. He did a lot. He blew up a lot of buildings, and it was because she let him out. He had tricked her into thinking he had completely recovered, that he was a victim of all this. Batman was actually the bad guy. Joker was an innocent little lad, and all of his actions were just horrible misunderstandings for horrible things from his horrible made-up origin that he'd told her. He exactly manipulated everything she'd wanted to hear, so she let him out. She believed he was a victim, and he immediately went on the second biggest crime spree my Gotham will have ever seen, with the most bloodshed Gotham has ever seen. Just soloed himself. My Joker's a monster. He's the boogeyman of my universe. Villains talk about him and they get scared.
I love it. I love your Joker. I love your fucking Joker. It's perfect. It's fucking perfect. I've been rewatching SVU with my girlfriend lately, and there's that one story arc where Olivia Benson gets like, where there's this like lunatic savant criminal who like just hoodwinks and fucks up the entire police precinct and kidnaps Olivia Benson, and like he's on the verge of getting away with all of it. And I just refer to him as the SVU Joker because he's just a force of fucking nature.
Yeah,
and like your Joker is like an elemental being of like malice. And it's so good.
That's what I want him to be. We hear. There's a video I've put up on YouTube and on my TikTok, which is Batman years 0 through 6, because I had to write a lot of origin story for Batman, as we'll find out in the sequel or in the next movie for why. Joker's a monster. He did the whole reason. Like I combined so many of his origin stories into one crime spree. I don't like the idea that Joker gets thrown in prison, breaks out, thrown in prison, breaks. Like I don't want it to be a revolving door at Arkham. I want Joker in my universe has gotten out 3 times. His premiere to the scene, broke out once, breaks out a second time, and each time is a legendary event. Like people know Joker is out. Run. He's terrifying.
Kind of what you have to do too, because like if you're doing movies, right? Like I talk about on the show the idea of having limited storytelling retail space.
Yeah.
Right. Like we talked before when No Way Home came out, and everyone in my personal life was talking to me about what they want in the next few Spider-Man movies, and I emphasize next few, and I'm like, guys, we don't cool it. It's like
okay. Several of my series do enter technically, I guess septology 6, but I shift mantles. You're not following the same person with all this stuff.
And also, like most of these like franchises are constructing what they do based on what succeeds and then moving forward from like they're going based off the market. You're writing everything in one batch in this like vision that works really well. And so but you like still contain to like, well, I have to contain it to a story that makes sense. How does Joker make sense?
If I want him to have he's terrifying. If I want him to have that reoccurring, he is Batman's arch nemesis vibe. If I want his crime spree to mean anything to the audience, we have to be expecting him. I have to build him up, and I had to write something to make sure that what I'm building up is still terrifying. I need him to live up to his own hype.
And not to get too far ahead of ourselves and like make you like divert in the middle of Suicide Squad to talk about the Joker necessarily, but like the thing that I love about your Joker is it very much in that like, where were you when Kennedy was killed? Where were you when 9/11 happened? Where were you when January 6th happened? That like each one of like Joker's like rampages through Gotham is a where were you on 9/11 type of where were you when Joker XYZ that I'm not gonna spoil for your next fucking movie.
The man is a man of business and action. He was the wrong guy to get turned into a clown. But we are told a decent amount of his origin through the lens of Harley in this movie.
Mm-hmm. There's an energy that Joker has in like any project that involves super people that aren't Batman, like Batman's there, but he's one of many.
Mm-hmm.
And that when Joker shows up in this room of people that are like heavily superpowered, everyone shuts the hell up.
Yes, I want that unsettling aura he has. That they're like, look, okay, we call ourselves supervillains probably because we have superpowers. That dude, no powers, probably the most supervillainous of all of us.
Yeah,
like that's an actual monster. And then he just sits there being like, "Yep, that's me."
I'm just a silly little guy.
It also adds to like. It's one of the things I love about Batman, and I know it's very funny, and I kind of do want to do an episode about it. The whole like, Spider-Man would if you make Spider-Man deal with Batman's rogues or make Batman deal with Spider-Man's rogues, and like the joke is always that like Spider-Man could do that shit in 2 hours, and Batman would like have a nervous breakdown by the time he gets to the Green Goblin. And while I do think that is kind of uncharitable, I think it's funny because I think that the Batman is truly like one of the few heroes who is like kind of hardwired to take on the Joker.
Yeah.
And that's why I love like again like the framing of him being this force of nature, that in many ways, again, not to get too far ahead and spoil anything, in a way, I think the way that he has to deal with Joker being this like malignant force, almost this embodiment of death, primes Bruce for his greatest challenge at the end of your Phase 3 is what I'll say. That I think that there is a narrative harmony there. My favorite George Lucas quote, it's like poetry, it rhymes. That like again in this fun cosmology of like, they were not destined to become heroes, they were destined to be given a choice. And the reason why that Bruce was destined to be given the choice to become the Batman was so that he could prepare himself to make the decision he makes in Phase 3.
Yep.
And it's like Joker primed him to take that on. And I've been holding on the clip the whole episode, but
this motherfucker don't miss.
No, he's fucking good.
That motherfucker don't miss, man.
He's good.
In the heat of battle, he don't miss.
No.
In the heat of controversy, he don't miss.
No.
I want Bruce's journey for the audience to make sense. I want my Batman on screen. I want that Batman who has feelings sometimes. And to get back to the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, sorry.
You're totally fine. It happens. And it's all good because we get to talk about Batman way more as soon as I get through this paragraph.
Yeah, I know. I'm not jumping the gun. Shocker.
Okay.
Jared's like, come on, get the Batman already, man. We
get a very sort of spy thriller-y feel movie as the Suicide Squad works together and sort of forms friendships with each other as they're investigating this thing. And finally, Deadshot, who I might have forgotten to mention up above. Deadshot's here too. Deadshot is there watching a group of people drive home, and he sees the car suddenly swerve off the road, careening off a bridge into a crevasse. Nothing started it. So Deadshot climbs down the cliff. He investigates it. There was no device on the car. He gets blood samples from the people. It's just, by all looks, they just drove off the cliff. And as he climbs back up, he sees a figure walking away from this. And this hooded man is leaving. Deadshot's a little suspicious, so Deadshot follows this guy. This guy gets keen to Deadshot following him. And as Deadshot is looking through a lens at this guy, he sees that it's Werner Vertigo. Deadshot is like, oh, hey, look, he was here. He did something. I'm going to shoot this guy right now. Just get this job done. Vertigo stares at Deadshot, and Deadshot misses. Something Deadshot does not do. Deadshot is overwhelmingly dizzy. He begins vomiting, and he falls down as Vertigo is surrounded by his own security guards after someone fired at him. Because of this public assassination attempt on a member of the Markovian royal family, technically, during this time when so many people of the Markovian royal family are being killed, the Markovian government shuts down. They bring all the members of the royal family to the castle, and they shut themselves in. And the Suicide Squad realizes, God damn it, we just locked everyone he needs to murder in the same room with him. And this dude has some weird ability to make people dizzy. So then we get a heist aspect of the Suicide Squad breaking into the castle. As they're breaking into the castle, this is where the Suicide Squad start living up to their names. They get to the castle safe room. They fight through a whole bunch of the guards. They get to the royal family. They save the young Brion Markov, a little crown prince. But Vertigo is messing with them too much. None of them can really land a hit on this guy. He has just killed a lot of the royal family in this lockup. And it's basically just Brion left, the young prince of Markovia. And the Suicide Squad is trying to save him. Killer Croc is the one holding the doors so that the Markovian Royal Guard cannot burst through to help. And when they blow the door, and that's what takes out Killer Croc. Waylon Jones through this movie, everyone calls him Killer Croc except for Harley Quinn, who the entire movie refers to him as his name, because Harley Quinn in this movie is practicing good psychiatry. She is being amazing to everyone. She is helping them through issues. She is doing her job because she's damn good at it. Waylon doesn't feel human because he was born with what I call the Chimera metagene in my universe. So he was born looking like a crocodile man and having crocodilian characteristics. And so for all the same reasons in the comics that he was tormented for having his weird lizard skin condition, all that is still true here. He has been called a monster for so long that he himself has started to believe it. And Harley is the one who gets him to believe, maybe just a little bit, he's not a monster. And so he holds that door, even though he starts getting hurt holding it. And Killer Croc gives his life to give the task force enough time to save everyone. Kite Man is the only member of the squad completely unaffected by Werner Vertigo's Vertigo powers, because as I established early in the movie, Kite Man has an inner ear thing. He just can't get dizzy. Doesn't matter. And he'll prove it by they'll spin him around on a chair during a sort of their bonding scene. And he just stands up perfectly fine. He just doesn't get dizzy. That's why he's not afraid of heights. He loves doing his paragliding thing. It's just his weird little quirk. Dude can't get dizzy. And so that's the only reason during this fight he can do anything, because his power is kite. His job is kite.
His job is kite.
And he's very good at it. His job is kite. And as the squad is attacking Vertigo, Vertigo starts weaponizing the squad's powers against them. He hits Weather Wizard as Weather Wizard is summoning a bolt of electricity right at the right time. So Weather Wizard misses. That bolt instead hits and takes out. Who did I write down? Heatwave. So Heatwave is now dead. And then he whips his head. Vertigo whips his head around, staring at Captain Boomerang, as Captain Boomerang had missed with one of his laser boomerangs, and he hits Boomerang just as he's about to catch the boomerang. So he misses, and it takes off his head. So there you go, everyone. You wanted Captain Boomerang? There he is. I killed him. I'm sorry. The Suicide Squad. I got to make him have stakes.
Listen, man. Oh man, I protest the death of Boomerang, but I understand
and that's why I wanted to. I want to hurt the audience. They'll be like, "Man, remember when they killed him? That sucked." And I'm like, "Yes, that's the mood I was going for. I wanted you to care that I killed him." So this leaves Deadshot, Harley, Ivy, and Kite Man, Captain Gold, and Golden Glider. Everyone else is dead. Weather Wizard also in turn getting hit by one of his own lightning attacks. Seeing that he is the only member unaffected by this whole thing, as Count Vertigo is standing nearby a window, Kite Man sprints at him, tackles him out the window, and drops him off the cliff behind the castle of the royal family of Markovia. He hits his chest, his kite opens, and he finds that it got really shot up when he was in there. So his kite opens full of holes. He says, "Oh, hell no," and he plummets into the ground alongside...
That was not in the
Vertigo.
version that was on YouTube. Fuck you.
Well, he says, "Hell yeah," leaping out of it, but he didn't intend to die that way. He screams hell because his catchphrase is "hell yeah." He tackles Vertigo out the window, screaming "hell yeah," and we just get a little "oh hell no" as he pops the thing and it doesn't open. Splat. There goes Count Vertigo and Kite Man. Kite Man is the hero of the movie. He completed the mission. He did it. Task Force X saved Brion, return him to the Royal Guard. Brion explains everything that he just witnessed. He says, "Those people saved me. It was the weird fucking Vertigo guy who killed everybody. Let them go. I pardon them from whatever crimes you would accuse them of. Let them go." And so Task Force X leaves the country. They return. Waller takes a couple years off each of their sentences. And before everyone goes, they have a shot toasting Kite Man where they all say "hell yeah," and do a shot in his honor. And Ivy pulls Harley in for a kiss and confesses her feelings to her, which have been growing through the movie. They're not friends. They're in love. And that is the Suicide Squad.
It's gay, and I love it. I love it. I love it. It's gay, and I love it.
Because I'm giving people Harley and Ivy. I'm not dancing around that. You get it. I hate when they keep trying to pull the rug out from under us and stuff. I'm like, no, it's canon, and you have to deal with it now. And then we move on to Batman.
Hell yeah.
The Batman.
The movie, I just wanted to explain the opening shot of my movie, just because I love it so much. We are on the Gotham docks. It is pitch black. There are criminals just sort of scoping everything out. One of them hears a noise coming from behind a corner. He says, "I know you're there, Bats." We see a caped figure swoop down on him. The man whips around just in time for his flashlight to illuminate Dick Grayson in his red and yellow costume as he beats the guy up. Dick takes that guy out, ties him up, and then Bruce drops in not too long after him. They give each other a lowdown that Bruce has already taken out a whole bunch of guys on the other side of the dock. Dick has been working from the opposite side. They've met in the middle. They are there to stop. It's a gang war that's been raging between Two-Face and the Penguin for a while. There is a weapons broker known simply as Iceman, who has been selling really high-tech good weapons, probably LexCorp stuff, to these gangs. And Bruce and Dick are trying to figure out who he is and stop this. While this is going on, after Jim Gordon arrives on scene with the rest of all the cool cops, so like Ellen Yin and I'm blanking on everyone's names. The rest, Renee Montoya, Harvey Bullock, and
it's okay. Don't feel bad. I almost said Inigo Montoya. I almost. Mandy Patinkin shows up with a rapier at the crime scene.
We get all the great named cops from the comics and shows, just doing their job. Jim goes up to Batman and says, "Hey, while this is going on, Carmine Falcone is about to die. I was hoping I could get you in on his last confession, see if you can put anything together." And Bruce is like, "Yeah, absolutely." Heads over to the deathbed of Carmine Falcone. Carmine Falcone is tied up, dying, just in a hospital. Terrible. This movie is an expansion on the amazing episode Batman Chill of the Night from Batman the Brave and the Bold. Carmine confesses to Batman just dozens of crimes. There's sort of a mutual respect going on because Carmine was really taken out of commission before Batman stepped onto the scene. And so Carmine's really like, "Hey man, like if you and I had to fight, like, ooh, that could have been pretty cool." And so there's a big respect thing going on. So he's just telling Bruce everything. And as he's going on, just offhandedly, he's like, "Oh yeah, I blew up that building. We We ran rackets out of this one. I was the dude who hired the guy to kill Thomas and Martha Wayne. We did this. And Batman's like, pump the brakes. Rewind. What?
You
And
fucking.
he's like, oh, yeah. That was me. I ordered the death of Thomas and Martha. I ordered the death of Thomas, but the shooter got antsy or something, and he killed Martha too. So that was messed up. I didn't want to leave a kid an orphan. Yeah, what are you going to do? Bruce hyperfixates on this and demands the guy's name. And Carmine just keeps telling him to chill. And Bruce keeps screaming at him for the name. And he's like, that's what I'm trying to tell you. It's Joe, chill. And then he dies. He dies right in front of him. Dick Grayson and Jim Gordon were outside watching this interrogation, and Jim walks in furious, like, what the hell, dude? He'd confessed to like 20, like, why'd you fixate on this? And Bruce storms out of the building, and Dick Grayson is like, sorry, Jim, I'll talk to him. We'll catch you later. Bruce is full-blown tunnel vision rampage at this point. He goes back to the Batcave with this critical piece of information, and he starts digging up anything he can find on someone named Joe Chill. He ditched Dick back at the hospital, so Dick had to come home and summon the Robin Mobile himself and ride back home. And he comes in trying to be like, Bruce, what the hell was that? Like, I get it, you know, that I know the importance of what this is to you, but like, you ditched me, you lost out on all this other stuff for investigations. What's going on? And Bruce snaps at Dick, like, don't start that with me. And then Alfred snaps at Bruce, being like, hey, shut up, dude. You can't talk to your son like that. Like, I raised you better than this. And Bruce has his speech from Arkham Origins with Alfred of like, you have to stop treating me like an 8-year-old. Like, I'm the reason criminals are afraid to go outside. I don't need this. I'm going to complete my mission. I'm going to find the guy who killed my parents, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so Dick Grayson is like, okay, fine. Then I'm going to find the Iceman by myself, asshole. Batman goes to talk to the Penguin, who used to be a lackey in Falcone's guys way back in the day. And since he took over, he's taken over a lot of Falcone's business. He filled that power vacuum. And Penguin reveals Joe Chill isn't anything because Batman couldn't find anything. Joe Chill was a nickname by this dude, Joseph Frediano, which Frediano was just Italian for ice. I didn't want to try too hard to name him, but didn't think Chill was a legitimate last name.
Mamma mia.
So he just lets him know, like, yeah, he was just some little guy. Like, he was still earning his stripes. Yeah, he did a dime back in the day. And that's why he survived Joker's massacre. I don't know what happened to him. He got out. I haven't heard of the guy since. Batman leaves the Iceberg Lounge. As he's leaving the Iceberg Lounge, he finds his Batmobile has been stripped of its tires. And as he goes to look at it, he finds 2 young, grimy boys, Jason Todd and Tim Drake.
It's so fucking good. It's so fucking good.
They are foster brothers. Tim was the one who hacked into the Batmobile's systems and turned off its security, and Jason was the one who removed the tires, did the bricking, all that kind of stuff. Batman follows the kids back to their house to retrieve the tires. He's going to make them put them on themselves because Batman's that kind of guy. And when he gets back to their house, he finds an abandoned foster home and that they've just still been living in. That the city worker who was in charge of running the whole thing just left one day. And Jason and Tim, who are 12 and 8 years old, have been living there alone for almost a year. So Tim views Jason very much as an older brother, and Jason is very protective of his younger brother, Tim. And as they're going to put the tires back on, Tim just looks at Batman and asks point blank, are you Bruce Wayne? And Jason begins to chastise him for this, of just like, dude, come on, really? Like, I'm sorry, he just has this weird theory. And Tim's like, it's a bit more than a theory. The Batmobile's operating system is eerily similar to Wayne operating systems. He's like, this is like advanced Wayne tech. You're Bruce Wayne, right? And Bruce tries to pass it off as no, and then Tim hits him with the whammy of like, okay, but like, I know Dick Grayson is Robin. I saw him. And we get the lovely backstory of Tim, that Tim's father was the gymnastics coach at Gotham High. Dick Grayson was the star of the gymnastics team. And so after school, when Dick Grayson was practicing gymnastics, the young Tim was there with his dad, and he would watch Dick Grayson practice. Dick Grayson is an extraordinarily gifted acrobat, capable of feats no one else is capable of, and he's an Olympic hopeful. And Tim, being an 8-year-old with access to a tablet, loves watching YouTube clips of Batman and Robin fighting crime. He adores it. And one day, Tim's dad was killed, and Batman and Robin found the murderer and brought him to justice within like a couple days. And Tim was put into Gotham foster care. While watching this stuff, he realized Dick Grayson was Robin, and therefore, very likely Dick Grayson's adoptive dad is Batman. And so he thought he'd ask point blank because he never thought he'd get this opportunity again. Batman tries to play it off. Like, he never confirms nor denies. He's just like, okay, sure. But he is staring at Tim like, how the fuck is this 8-year-old getting all my stuff? He makes them put their tires back on, and he turns to them, and they reveal that they were just trying to sell the tires just to get some money because they haven't eaten in a couple days. And Bruce pulls out just a credit card. Just a Wayne Tech blank like company credit card, and he hands it to him. He's like, I won't report it stolen. Like, buy whatever the fuck you want. And the boys take this as like confirmation, like, oh shit, he's right. Like, and then that's when Jason jumps in of like, we knew it. We totally got this. Even though he was adamantly denying it right up until that point.
I'm gonna interrupt you. This again was one of the moments where I was like, oh my fucking god! Like what I said earlier with the whole like knowing when to play things, like just straight up adaptation, and when to like press the fucking remix button. It's shit like this. Allowing Bruce to fully adopt Tim, brilliant. The whole idea of Jason and Tim kind of being a package deal, brilliant. Just like this beat again. I was just cleaning the house, listening to your like the full playlist on YouTube, and I'm trying to do laundry, and I'm just punching the air, throwing shit because I'm like, fuck, this is so good.
Thank you. My goal there, eventually I want every member of the Bat family in my universe. And with 4 central Robins to get through and 3 Batgirls, and then Signal and Batwing and Jace Fox, I'm like, how am I going to consolidate this stuff? Because if I was the audience member watching a movie and we got a brand new Robin every single movie, I wouldn't care anymore. And I would never establish an emotional connection to Jason, which we're going to need. And we're never going to establish the brotherly bond that the Robins are supposed to have. They refer to each other as brothers in the comics. They totally act like brothers in good adaptations of them. And if we want that bond, we have to get that immediately. So I wanted to pre-establish the bond between Jason and Tim. Tim's origin, I just took a little bit of when instead of being a rich kid who figured that stuff out, he was a foster kid who figured that stuff out. I lumped him in with Jason there, but still let Tim keep he figured it out. He was the smart one. He did all that stuff. I don't want to do disservice to Tim, but I am changing his origins in that, so I got to put some respect on his name in other places. So Tim is a genius. As this stuff is going on, we cut to Dick Grayson's solo investigation of the Iceman. Dick Grayson is investigating Two-Face. He's going that route with it. Batman went Penguin with his thing. Jason is going to Two-Face. Two-Face is one of the big major buyers of Iceman's weapons. He storms Two-Face's HQ to interrogate Two-Face, and he gets through it. We get a fight scene. I would want all of my fight scenes to be very well coordinated, actual like kung fu, awesome John Wick level fight scenes of the Bat family whooping ass. Dick Grayson solos Two-Face's headquarters and gets into Two-Face's room. And I was like, all right, you're going to tell me everything you know. And Harvey's going to be like, okay, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. Sure. And he's like, yeah,
Fuck it.
he's
Okay.
like, yeah, the guy you're looking for. He's like the Iceman. His name is Joseph Frediano. He was a scumbag I dealt with back when I was a DA. There you go. Like have fun with that. And Dick's like, awesome. Now to turn around completely unwounded. And he turns around and way more Two-Face guys have showed up. And Two-Face is like, yeah, kill him. And so the goons attack Dick. Dick fights them off. Dick gets very wounded. He manages to survive. He beats the stuffing out of a lot of these guys. But he has to have the Robin mobile auto drive him home. He is near dying. He gets there. Alfred finds him. Alfred, we keep the thing that Alfred has the training from hanging out with Thomas Wayne enough, and also Alfred's own military origins, because I'm keeping the MI5 Alfred. Because I just love that the Waynes decided to save a little money. They did not just hire a butler; they hired everything.
A butler guard medic,
butler bodyguard. They got the bang for their buck. And this dude was left when he was left to raise Bruce, because I'm also keeping that it was Alfred's dad who was the family butler before him. When he took over the role for his dad and suddenly became a father himself to the young Bruce, he went full. He went ham. He trained Bruce. Bruce, a lot of Bruce's martial arts stuff started with Alfred. He was the spark for this. So my Alfred, I've made a video screaming about it. My fan cast for Alfred would be Jason Statham.
Which is such a novel casting.
That is
such a
crazy
choice. I love it.
It's just it's by far my wildest thing. But I just wanted Alfred to act sort of like a proto Batman, because even though Batman does a lot of stuff despite of Alfred raised Bruce. They should have a lot of similarities character-wise. And I thought of, instead of making Bruce more prim and proper, what if I made Alfred gruff and grimier?
Yeah.
And so Alfred has a lot of Batman's tendencies. And that's why Alfred isn't actively fighting Batman's crusade against crime, because Alfred kind of agrees the whole time. He has that soldier sort of mentality to this whole thing of he gets it. He sees the mission. He thinks Bruce takes it too far sometimes, for sure, but he ultimately agrees with the crazy shit Bruce does. And so he'd be sort of a proto Bruce, but still a lovely prim and proper Alfred to guests and all that stuff. As I'll show later.
Dog.
Exactly. Alfred rushes Dick upstairs to the study, and he begins treating Dick's wounds. Unfortunately, this is exactly when Barbara Gordon, Dick Grayson's high school girlfriend, who we've already seen in a previous scene in this movie just for a little bit, she has arrived for studying together. They were there to study. It's getting close to finals. They're almost graduated. She shows up, lets herself in, and finds Alfred escorting a broken, bloodied, Robin-clad Dick to the study. So Barbara now knows what's going on. She helps Alfred. They get Dick stabilized. And as Dick comes to and realizes that his girlfriend has found out his secret identity and all that stuff, they just have a chat about, what he's been doing. And he's like, yep, I am Robin. Yes, Bruce is Batman. I'm sorry that I lied to you this whole time. And she is a little upset about the keeping of the secrets, but also her dad is a cop who was kicked out of his last city because he was actually a good cop and he was reporting on crooked cops in his own precinct. So she doesn't really like law enforcement too much. She believes in criminal justice, but not the established law enforcement system. She believes her dad is a good cop, but that cops as a whole, not great. She adores the idea of Batman and Robin and that there are non-lethal, non-powered crime fighters out there doing their good work. And she's always had a crush on Robin. So finding out that her boyfriend is Robin, she's like, this is kind of look, I'm mad, but also this is great. But also this is awesome. And also my favorite superhero is Batman. And that's your adoptive dad. So this is, I'm on a mix of Cloud9 and I want to kill you, but you've already been beaten half to death, so I think you've paid. And while this is happening, this is when Bruce returns from his whole Jason and Tim adventure. And when he sees that Barbara Gordon now knows, he once again, he loses it. He screams at all of them in the middle of this thing. Alfred screams back at him like, you have to knock this shit off and stop treating your children like this. And Dick updates Bruce of like, hey, wow, by the way, BT Dubs, while you were off doing your stupid rampage thing, I got the Iceman's name and where they're going to meet up. His name is Joseph Frediano, and they have an auction going down tonight at like 10 p.m. And Bruce is like, whoa. You found, like, oh, God, no. And that's just the first bit of like, shit, I went tunnel vision when the answer was actually working together this whole time. Bruce tears out Rampage, full-blown, seeing red. He is fully intent in his mind. He thinks he's going to go kill Joe Chill. And then Dick Grayson, wounded, gives his origin story to Barbara. He tells her the whole story. His parents were killed by Tony Zuko when he was 8 years old. The Haley Circus refused to pay protection money. And so as a message of like, next time you're in town, you will pay us that money. They loosened the bolts on the flying trapeze. And so Dick Grayson's mom, Dick Grayson's dad, and Dick Grayson's uncle, Boston Brand, plummeted to their deaths. Dick Grayson entered foster system immediately, but was immediately adopted by Bruce Wayne, because Bruce Wayne was in the audience when this happened and saw the look on Dick Grayson's face and recognized it from his own childhood. Bruce adopted Dick, and Dick was left almost alone, except for Alfred, in Wayne Manor for about 3 days. He never saw Bruce. Bruce was never there. He was told you're being adopted by Bruce Wayne. He was taken to the manor, and Alfred hung out with him, but he never saw Bruce. And it is revealed one night, Dick is woken up, and Bruce Wayne, dressed as Batman, cowl off, is standing above Dick's bed, and he's saying, "Follow me downstairs." Dick Grayson is absolutely confused as to what's going on. Like, why are you dressed as Batman? What is happening right now? And Bruce walks him out to the foyer in the grand staircase, and he points down the staircase, and in the middle of the hall, right at the open doors to Gotham City, there's a storm outside. It is raining. Bruce is soaking wet. Are 3 guys. It's Tony Zuko and his 2 men. They are clearly badly beaten. One of their legs is facing the wrong direction. They are gagged and blindfolded and presented in front of Dick Grayson. And Bruce Wayne, standing there looking at Dick Grayson, says, "What do you want me to do to them?" And Dick Grayson, in that moment, knew this was a test from Batman. Batman was trying to see how heroic this kid was. And so he said, "Throw him in jail." And so Batman took them to jail. While this is happening, while we're getting this lovely flashback, we're cutting back to Bruce Wayne, and it is revealed that the flashback that Dick Grayson has been narrating has been happening in Bruce's head this whole time. Bruce has been remembering that night, because to him, that Bruce was not testing Dick. In that moment, Bruce was completely engulfed by trauma, and he wanted to live out his own fantasy that he had when he was 8 of hunting down and killing the guy who killed his parents. But these weren't those people. So in this moment of horrible weakness, he was kind of looking at Dick Grayson to give him approval to kill. And in this moment that he himself, when he was 8, would have made the decision to kill the man who killed his parents, this kid, same decision, says no. This kid proves himself better than that. And that was a big moment for Bruce in my universe, that it really hardened his decision of I can't kill, because this is when he recognizes what that would lead to. So it's being framed that as he's on this rampage to kill Joe Chill, he's going to kill Joe Chill. It's the way it's being framed. But after he has his beatdown with Joe Chill and has the lovely, like, "You killed Thomas and Martha Wayne. How could you possibly know that? That was a lifetime ago." Exactly. Rips the cowl off. My lifetime. As he's doing that amazing speech, we get some interwoven stuff with him talking about how Dick Grayson, how he met a kid who's better than he is and inspired him to be better in turn. And Dick Grayson, we then get the final bit of the flashback of when Dick Grayson looks at Batman and says, no, take him to jail because heroes don't kill. We cut back to Batman and says, no, heroes don't kill. And he drops Joe Chill. He's like, I'm taking you to prison. That's how this is going to go down. But while this is going down, Batman did beat the brakes off of every goon in that facility that was trying to buy a weapon. And during that time, one of them dropped a grenade, or dropped like a candle or something that started a chain reaction of burning stuff. And so now the entire warehouse is burning down, and it's finally just apparent. And Bruce sees this and throws his cowl back on, leaps out the window back to the warehouse, and starts getting everyone out. Because he's not going to kill him. He's just wanted to beat the shit out of Joe Chill and know, hey, Batman exists because of you. You're my origin story.
You unleashed this scourge on crime.
Yeah, everything.
You did this.
I love that moment in the episode and from the comics when Joe Chill tells other criminals, like, hey, guys, I'm the guy who killed Batman's parents, and that's why he's so pissed. When all the criminals are going, oh, so it's your fault, and they murder him. While I did love that, my version of it is while Bruce is out there saving people, Joe Chill books it. He heads out the warehouse, down the street, and runs blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks until he is panting and heaving and he cannot do anything more. He pulls out his cell phone. It's shattered. Got shattered when he got really beat up by Bruce. And he starts looking around and he notices these two dudes hanging out in an alley, and he just approaches them and he pulls out his wallet. And as he opens his wallet, he clearly has like thousands of dollars in there. He pulls out like a couple hundreds and goes, hey, let me buy your phone. And the guy looks at him and goes, and the guy pulls out a gun and he goes, I'll take all your money and you get fucking nothing. And Joe Chill tries to pull a like, do you know who I am? And the guy says, no. And he shoots Joe Chill and he takes his wallet and he leaves. And so Joe Chill dies bleeding out in an alley, exactly like what he did to Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Hell yeah.
Karma. And the movie ends with Bruce Wayne, finding Joe Chill's body, and the police being like, hey, this is that guy. So, hey, closed case. We can call Bruce Wayne, let him know that we got all this stuff locked down. That's going to be great. And Bruce returns home. He full-blown apologizes to everyone. He apologizes to Alfred. He apologizes to Barbara. He apologizes to Dick. He owns up to his mistakes, and he gives his son a hug. And he thanks Dick for being awesome. Like, you are the reason I am as good as I am. Thank you very much.
Because that's what Batman does.
Batman does. He's nice to kids sometimes. He admits his mistakes. We get rid of. He still has that grimdark. That grimdark part is never going to go away from him. But he can be better. This is, for all intents and purposes, like the Blue Cowl Batman. This is him trying to be better.
What I love about it, I often say that my favorite Batman movie is The Batman, because it feels like the only time where the Batman mythos is expanded beyond being this specter haunting Gotham, and it being like a savior and a hopeful figure. And it's one of the reasons why I love your take on Batman, is because you see that, like, you can tell this is a Bruce that has largely grown past like the kind of impulses that Pattinson's Batman has. Mm-hmm. That it is this is the guy who killed the Waynes, and he's out there still, and knowing that he now finally has a lead, like, makes him relapse into worse behaviors. And like that element of like Bruce is regressing right now,
exactly,
and he's pissing away all of the progress he's made. And
exactly, and that's why Alfred and Dick are so angry with the guy, because he's acting out of character. He's acting in character for how a lot of people recognize Batman, as he's portrayed a lot. But to them, this isn't how he acts. This is weird behavior for them, and it's because that's what he was.
Yeah,
that's what he used to be.
Yeah,
and he's better than that. And then, of course, we end with Tim and Jason. Someone from foster care comes to get them. They see on the news that Wayne Enterprises has basically bought the foster care system from Gotham City. Like, they're fully funding it. They've decided to run it out of the Wayne Foundation. The Thomas and Martha Wayne Foundation are now in charge of all of the foster care systems in Gotham, and they're all getting major upgrades. We get a lovely quick montage of like other kids being taken from horrible foster homes, being brought to very lovely furnished facilities that Bruce has opened. And Tim and Jason are loaded into a car and being driven, but they're driven past the other facility that they keep seeing, and they are brought to Wayne Manor because it is revealed that they are being adopted. Well, officially fostered, because the adoption thing comes later.
I was about to say, don't you say that. You motherfucker, don't.
I gift with one hand and I stab you in the heart with the other.
Indeed.
And that is Batman, which finally brings us to the final movie in Phase 1, The Justice League. The movie begins and we see the Kingdom of Atlantis attacked by a platoon of Amazons. News reaches Poseidonus, and Arthur has to prepare for war against their long-distant cousins. We cut to Central City, and we see Aquaman rising from the local lake and flooding the city, declaring war on Earth, on the surface world again, before going away before the Flash can stop him. We then cut to Metropolis, where the Flash is on a murder spree. Superman keeps trying to catch him, but he is not fast enough. And finally, we cut to Themyscira, where Amazons are just having a regular day, and suddenly green beams from the sky shoot down and vaporize Amazonians. Wonder Woman looks up, and we see Superman using green heat vision to slaughter Amazonians. Diana tries to stop him, but he flies away before she can. So she gears up to hunt down and murder Superman for killing her sisters. We then cut to the Louisiana swamplands. A horrible building in the guise of some sort of black skull rises from the waters. A group of criminals walks in, and we see Dr. Wolfgang Krieger from the Justice Society movie, the bearded Nazi scientist, father of Captain Nazi.
It's crazy. He's so old.
He shaved his beard. He's somehow recovered from being beheaded and nuked. And
he got better.
He got better. And he has recruited Orm Mirror Master, the rebuilt cyborg of Hank Henshaw, and Professor Ivo for a plan he has been concocting for 80 years. His name is not Wolfgang Krieger. His name is Vandal Savage. And 80 years ago, Wonder Woman killed the love of his life, the only other immortal woman who wasn't related to him, and their son, while he was on the verge of world domination, because he managed to find a people so stupid they believed in the concept of a master race, and he can't stop having gods as children. The origin of the metagene, the origin of superpowers, is all from Vandal Savage. He was irradiated by the rock that gave him his immortality, and he was turned into the first metahuman, his superpower being, of course, true immortality. This dude, makes Wolverine's healing factor look like nothing. This dude, again, beheaded and nuked, got better. He truly cannot die. That is his power. And every single one of his children he has ever had are heralded as gods. They are immensely powerful metahumans.
It's so fucking good. It's so fucking good.
While this is happening, Batman and Robin are seeing news reports about the other heroes committing atrocities. Aquaman attacking Central City, the Flash going on a murder spree. This doesn't make sense. These are the two detectives are looking at this saying, this is stupid. They do not act this way. This is clearly some sort of trick. And so Batman and Robin go to Metropolis to talk to Superman. They figure he is the best start. He has the best reputation. And I established that Batman and Superman have spoken before. They are familiar with one another. This is a scene I've never included, but I've always toyed around with, of a Bruce Wayne fresh off of the League of Shadows threatening Superman's life in my Superman movie. I've always toyed with that idea, but I never really liked it too much, so it never made it in. But this Bruce and Batman, they've met at least a few times. Dick Grayson has never met Superman, though, so Dick Grayson is fanboying the fuck out right now. He's like, "Oh my, it's actually Superman." Batman's like, "It's not that big of a deal." They offer their assistance as detectives to help with Superman, and Superman's like, "Yeah, totally, we got this." They look up the scene, and Batman is basically just surprised by the lack of evidence. And Superman's like, "Well, yeah, but Flash is super fast." And Batman's like, "No, I'm talking, there aren't skin follicles, there aren't footprints, there aren't fingerprints, glove prints, there's nothing. Nothing was here." And Superman's confused, like, "But yeah, he murdered someone and then ran away from me at like near light speed." And Batman's like, "That's what I'm saying. I don't think that was the Flash." And so then they go talk to the Flash. Superman, Batman, and Robin now head to Central City to talk to the Flash. And the Flash is meanwhile trying to investigate Aquaman's thing. Because this is why would Aquaman attack Central City? A city in the middle of the country, away from any oceans. It makes no sense at all. It is objectively stupid. Everyone else shows up. And since Flash does not try to run or fight Superman, Superman suspects maybe something's up. Flash is able at least to prove to them, he did not go to Metropolis and go on a murder spree. That's not who he is as a person. They investigate stuff. They do find evidence that this was an Atlantean attack, and so the crew of now 4 people decide, all right, let's go to Atlantis. And Bruce is like, I own a submarine, so let's do this thing. And Flash is like, "You have a submarine?" And they go. They go to Atlantis. Superman just
not controlled with a PlayStation controller.
Yes, he has the Bat submarine, a good one, totally rated for these depths.
He didn't build it himself at a Home Depot.
No.
Superman flies down to speak to Aquaman as they have a rapport. Aquaman confirms he did not flood a surface city. And meanwhile, this is happening, they're cleaning up the remnants of the Amazonian attack. The Amazonians attacked them underwater. And so Atlantis is in full-blown, they're geared up for war mode. And as Batman, again, whips on the dive suit, all that stuff, and does his forensic investigating underwater, now with the added addition of forensic scientist Barry Allen, they look at all this stuff and they deduce that there was something here, but it was not biological. They are finding evidence of robotics. And this convinces Aquaman to head with them. And they don't find just evidence of robotics. They find a robot. They find a robot with a malfunctioning, essentially holograph chip that is displaying the guise of an Amazon over it. They do some digging and they clearly find this is the work of none other than Professor Anthony Ivo. That man, this is his whole thing. Hey, he's from Metropolis. Let's go talk to him. They show up. Anthony Ivo hasn't shown up for work in like 4 months. He vanished a while ago. He hasn't been here. There's a new professor doing his job and everything. Batman and Robin, once again, using their amazing detective skills, look at this stuff, and they manage to recover a fragment of an email that just had some coordinates on it. That it was the last thing Ivo received. They just find a weirdly vague coded message about an amazing job opportunity, the Louisiana swamplands, and some coordinates. And they're like, okay, something is clearly up. Let's go track this motherfucker down. And that is when Diana shows up. She is on the warpath. She has been away from the world of man for almost 30 years now. She has not stepped foot on the land of man. And she is here for revenge. She leaps at Superman. She does not ask questions. She does not make accusations. She leaps at him. And we get a fight scene of all 4 heroes trying desperately not to be murdered by Wonder Woman as she whoops their asses. She's non-lethally attacking the others. No beef against them. She is gunning for Superman's head. Luckily, they are able to calm her down a little bit and explain how crazy everything is. And to at least follow them to Louisiana swamplands to see what's going on here. She agrees, but she is watching Superman. She does not like or trust him at all. They arrive at the Louisiana swamplands. At the location, they find the Black Skull facility. Wonder Woman coughs up like, okay, maybe there's a little something going on here. As they try to sort of stealth around and figure out what's going on, they uncover that yes, this was an army of robots designed as Amazons to attack Atlantis. This was Orm disguised as Aquaman attacking Central City. This was a hologram traveling at light speed, duplicate of the Flash. And finally, the last member of the Legion of Doom walks in, Hank Henshaw, who, while he was known as Metallo, invented by Anthony Ivo upgraded him to a cyborg doppelganger of Superman, powered by kryptonite, who attacked the Amazonians to instigate war. Vandal's plan has been, and we see Vandal Savage, who Wonder Woman recognizes from 80 years ago. We get the lovely fights. Everyone's having trouble sort of fighting their doppelganger, so they decide to mix things up, and they all, shift one to the right and are able to do it. Mirror Master can't do anything against Superman because Superman uses X-ray vision to find where Evan McCullough actually is and just go and dunk, and there go the holograms. Wonder Woman is really great at chopping up robots. Batman whoops Professor Anthony Ivo's butt. Like, it's pretty easy fight there. They stop this stuff, and then Vandal fights Wonder Woman. This whole thing, Vandal has lived for over 50,000 years. He has seen the rise and fall of so many groups of gods and heroes. He knows it's an inevitability heroes are going to team up. He was on the precipice of world domination last time. He had a superpowered, blonde-haired, blue-eyed son in an army that believed those people were literally walking gods. And he's like, his plan was install his son as the Führer after like a century or two because they wouldn't die. The son would be like, hey, by the way, actually, my dad straight up is the master race. All of his kids, like superpowered people, that's the real master race, and it's all directly from him. Vandal almost had everything. He had a family. He had an immortal family. They believed in the same kind of evil that he did, and he had an army full of idiots willing to believe in the concept of a master race, and Wonder Woman took all of that from him. The Justice Society took all of that from him, but for reasons that will become apparent later, he didn't need to take revenge on the other members of the Justice Society, only Wonder Woman. And as he was gearing up to take revenge on Wonder Woman, a new generation of superheroes was happening, and so he decided, we have to team up and kill them before they get us. And there's no better way to do that than having them fight each other. Instill distrust amongst them, they will fight each other. If we piss off Wonder Woman, she will kill Superman. If Superman is dead, who is going to stop us? So his plan was just pit everyone against each other. Flash would try to fight Superman. Aquaman would try to fight Flash. Aquaman would try to fight Wonder Woman, or Flash would try to fight Aquaman. Aquaman would try to fight Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman would try to kill Superman. Superman would be trying to get the Flash. Everyone would try and fail to kill Superman. Superman would probably kill everyone else, and then Wonder Woman would kill him, and Vandal would kill her. Perfect. It was amazing. It was the perfect plan. But he forgot to account for the billionaire in Gotham City that never left his own damn house.
He did not account for the crazy fuck from Gotham.
His perfect plan, 80 years in the making, an army of cyborgs powered by kryptonite, everything undone because he forgot to account for the guy living in his parents' basement.
A quirked up white boy with absolutely no swag brings Vandal Savage to his knees.
They stop the league.
Nightwing was there.
Yeah, Dick is there. He is providing stuff. He is fangirling this whole time meeting all these superheroes. He's like, this is so cool. I get to meet you guys. They all kind of question why there's a 17-year-old hanging out with them.
At least he's 17 in this one.
And we get the establishment that the only reason Batman allows Dick Grayson to go out on the field anyway is because he knows he cannot stop Dick Grayson from fighting crime. Robin was not an invention of Batman's. That was not Batman's intention. That was Robin's thing from the get-go. Bruce allows him to tag along because at least as long as he's near Bruce, Bruce can protect him. And he has the rule that you cannot leave the cave until you can lay Bruce flat on his ass at least once. So Dick has beaten Batman in at least one fight in this universe. We've never seen it. but those are the bare minimum for Batman is you have to be able to beat him at least once. Because if you can do that, he's literally in the top 10 deadliest people on the entire planet. He's like, okay, if you can beat me, we're good. And there is they defeat this Legion of Doom. They bring the villains to justice. Cyborg Superman is imprisoned and basically just sort of turned into a brain in a jar. And even though he's not set up for the brain, ironically, but he comes back later. And the Flash is the one to suggest the restarting of the Justice Society in honor of Jay Garrick. He's like, hey, I mean, Wonder Woman, you were literally the founder, and Jay was with you, and I'm the new Flash. Wouldn't it be pretty cool if we just sort of kept tabs on each other, help each other out from now on, like did all that kind of stuff? And Diana is like, no. I don't want to restart the Justice Society. She's like, I'm down for a new thing, like maybe inspired by it, but I'm not going to lead another superhero team. You guys can run this one. I'm kind of out. I'll help you guys when you need it, but I don't really want to restart the Justice Society. And so instead, she suggests the change of the Justice League. And so they form the Justice League. And the Justice League is now born and exists in my DC cinematic universe. And that is the closeout of Phase 1.
I fucking love it all.
Thank you.
It's just straight fire. It's just straight heat.
A theme I wanted to get across with Vandal, and a thing I love doing, is immortals have patience. Vandal was willing to commit to an 80-year-long plan because he's 50,000 years old. That's like a 3-month plan for us. Like, hey, would you do something for 3 months that would have payoff for the rest of your life? Yeah, absolutely, I would. But for him, it's 80 years. And he's like, yeah, sure. I don't need immediate revenge. I just need guaranteed revenge. And so he'll wait as long as that takes. And then, hey, dang, the universe did a lot of it for him, as we'll see.
The balance of power in your DC cinematic universe, the hierarchy of power.
The hierarchy of power
in your DC cinematic universe certainly changed.
Good Lord.
Travis, this is your first go. So how are you feeling coming through here at the what are we 3 hour, 3.5 hours?
3.5 hours and like 7 movies. It's
we
a lot.
got through 7 movies in 3 hours. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Travis, how you feeling?
There's one of the many things that the MCU kind of ruined for movies like it is that because, like, you know, the framework of Iron Man was stitched into other big box office flicks, right, as it expanded. There was the idea of, like, one, we can't do actual comic book feeling stories as much, and everything has to end in a big blockbuster blowout with an enemy that mimics the hero's powers, and that's just the plot of the movie. And, like, I love that as much as the next guy. And, you know, over 15 years of MCUification of media, it does wear on you a bit. And I love that these stories that you've prepared don't all follow that rhythm. Like, we don't have to have an Ultron or like a central threat or like I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, but like the idea of Vandal Savage and a Legion of Doom heading a Justice League movie is not something I would actually like consider a reality. But I love it so much. Like,
a lot of my ideas now is I have the benefit of I get to operate off of the platform of willing suspension of disbelief that the MCU has set now. When the MCU started off, remember, Thor wasn't magic. He wasn't actually a god. He was a very powerful alien that we could only conceptualize as a god because we didn't really have another good word for it. And he didn't have magic. They had technology you couldn't understand. And that's how they had to sell it to mass audiences.
Right.
Cut to Thor, Love and Thunder. And they actually just go to Omnipotent City and they fought Zeus and all that crazy stuff. And gods melt into gold goo when you kill them. And there's a willing suspension of disbelief that now mass audiences are willing to accept. They like, if I say, hey, also magic exists, I'm not going to get someone now who's just going to stand up and be like, that's it.
Right.
I'm out.
This
I
is
can
goofy
go.
and I hate it. Yeah, I think we know that, and the odd like people that would go to see that movie know that, and like among other things that the execs and the producers of these projects don't understand, like how to pay their workers, is that a project can do well when you let your story involve those suspensions of disbelief, as opposed to like, no, I have to be able to sell this to anybody that's ever existed.
Yeah.
I mean, look back at Fantastic, like one of the most infamously bad superhero movies of all time. Like, aside from like the studio meddling and like there being studio execs literally repainting the sets between days of shooting, like there was a whole debate internally about, are we really going to name this guy Victor Von Doom? With like there was a whole internal debate as to whether or not they were going to change Doom's name. And like it denotes a lack of confidence in your story, that you're like, I cannot convince the audience to just accept that this motherfucker's name is Doom.
Well, here's
and that's one of the things I love, Dave, about your pitch here, is that it leads into the hokey and the Pollyanna of superhero storytelling, and it feels like it just feels so authentically DC when it is at its fucking best. And
if you told someone that they could get a live action adaptation of like the Justice League cartoon, because that's like what your stories are emanating to me. Is like
those are the stories that raised me. So, and raised a whole generation of nerds. Like me, just like a lot of people, my entry into superheroes was Batman the animated series on Saturday mornings. I was raised by DC Comics. I only had 2 kids channels growing up. I had Kids WB and I had PBS Kids. And that was the lovely era when Kids WB was like, this Saturday morning, it's Batman, the animated series, Superman, the animated series, Batman Beyond, the animated series, and Static Shock, the animated series, in a row. So for 2 hours every Saturday, I got to watch DC superheroes. And then when I was 14, I was walking around not Blockbuster, oh my goodness, Barnes & Noble one day, and I pass a comic book, and it's called Batman Battle for the Cowl, and Nightwing's standing on the cover, and he's holding the bat cowl in his hands, and I pick it up and I flip it around, and it's like, after the death of Bruce Wayne. I'm like, Bruce Wayne died? What's happening? And so I spent my real 14-year-old earned money, and I bought that comic. It was my first comic I ever bought. And then after I read that, I was like, man, I'm missing a lot. And I Google it, and it's like, yeah, it's a sequel to a storyline called Batman R.I.P. And so then I read that. It's like, oh yeah, that's a sequel to Final Crisis. And so then I read Final Crisis. I'm like, damn, how much do I have to read to understand this? And then so I've just worked retroactively from there, and then worked my way back forward.
It's like, okay, Action Comics #1, let's go.
I'm like, all right, let's do this thing. And so I love these characters, and I was just living in a time where when I started fantasizing about this universe, Thor had just come out. So like the only superhero movies we had were basically Marvel movies. We had the Christopher Reeve movies. Batman Begins had like just happened. The Dark Knight wasn't going to come out for another year. I had Thor, I had the Fantastic Four movies, I had the Spider-Man movies. So that was my intro to Marvel. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, DC has gotten no love recently. I'm like, we have some 90s Batman flicks and then kind of nothing. And I was like, what would that look like if I were to take Marvel's approach towards it. And it started with my Aquaman thing, and then I had that thought and cascaded into what it has become. And I have a spreadsheet of every single named character in my entire universe and their race, their gender identity, their sexual identity, their good or evil orientation, and I run math on all of it and cross-reference it with census data to make sure that I am at minimum hitting actual real-world levels of representation for my universe, so that no matter what, even the loudest mouthest guys saying like this guy's trying to cram diversity down our throats, I can pull mathematical evidence that this is actually how the world is.
Woke calculus is my favorite thing about your whole universe, and you had a whole movie where that is just Kite Man. Hell yeah!
Kite Man, hell yeah! You need just a lovely guy sometimes in this team full of criminals who have just loved murder and all that stuff. You need the one guy who just accidentally killed someone on a heist where he was trying to jump off a building in a giant kite suit.
I love it. We're coming up on time here, but real quick, with our Q&A, our weekly Q&A stuff, just before we wrap up here and call it a day, Ray Clausen asks, and this is definitely directed towards Dave. Hey guys, my question is, how do you keep Batman stories fresh and exciting? I often think about how I would do an interconnected DC universe, and I always get stuck on Batman. A lot of the villains are used a ton, so I'm curious, how would you give the spotlight to a lot of the underused villains? Also, how many Animal Man movies? 6 or 7? I know we kind of touched on like your approach with like the whole like, joke, like where were you when the Joker struck?
Yeah.
And genocided the fucking mob families.
Exactly. Joker's entry to the scene was him wiping out organized crime in Gotham because they pissed him off. My approach towards Batman is to just give a mass audience the Batman I grew up with, because I hadn't seen that in movies yet. I'd gotten the very campy, clearly obviously inspired by Adam West's Batman, and that's what like Batman and Robin and Batman Forever very much are sort of emulating, was that very much like, haha, well, actually my Bat credit card and all my Bat gadgets and the whole toys. And then we've started getting the grimdark Batman, and I hadn't gotten to see yet, like, we had one Dick Grayson for 2 movies there for a bit, and he got to wear a cool costume. But like, where's the love for the Bat fam? And so I think the most interesting thing you can do for a Bat project in a cinematic universe is establish the Bat family. Get them in there. Show us a Bruce who's grown past the characterization that a lot of people want to throw him in, that the Dark Knight Returns sort of introduced, of that brutal Batman. Show him growing beyond that into the better version of himself.
I think that is a hard thing for like for general audiences with Batman, is that like every recent depiction of him is either very beginning or very end of his career. And and I always thought about like Bruce's arc in theory, like is like kind of like shaped like a bell curve. Like it is, I am this like vengeful specter haunting Gotham who eventually gets a handle on his emotions and becomes like a well-rounded, amazing father and teammate and friend. And again, if you get into like one of his worst potential futures with The Dark Knight Returns, he becomes addicted to the nostalgia of beating the shit out of people and regresses all the way back. And it's because of, and again, like it's easy to start at the beginning or the end. So for a movie, I understand like why we keep getting like year 1s or year 2 Batman. And it's why I love the Batman so much. Like I said earlier, is it's like, oh, the whole point is he's moving past this. Great. But like, because of that, so many people are locked into this version of Batman. And you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And none of them have gone for the obvious fucking cheat code of here's Dick Grayson too.
Yeah. It's like, or the rest of the family, dozens of characters, like half of DC's comics that are currently running right now are Bat family members.
Well,
they're Batman related titles. Do that. That's just so much lore.
The sell of like they're afraid to sell a Batman to general audiences that you don't need to be explained to how he got there. The Batman is kind of the first one to do it in a serious attempt especially recently, and like it was incredible. So imagine they just go, oh, what if we do it 5 or 6 years into Batman's career and he has Robin? What if we do it 8 or 9 years into his career and Dick's
There's a
off like
couple Robins.
He's already
Yeah.
on to Jason and
Yeah,
Big
it's-
Nightwing already.
Let's cover
Yeah.
some of the stuff we haven't gotten to see yet. I think that's really it. And while there are plenty of villains who have been done a lot, I would make a case. A lot of them haven't been done good. So just do them.
Yeah, just do them
Just have
well.
them. Yeah, just do them well. Just bring them in. Just copy paste from the comics right on the screen. Let me see it.
In the comments, you made it. You got all
You
the
can
way
find
to the end.
spectacular
Phase one.
runs of every
Here,
single Batman villain and
we've
just do that.
defeated Vandal Savage
Dude,
together.
No, the entire universe doesn't have to be an original
Guys,
concept. You
leave
can port
questions
over
in the
the
comments
storylines that make some of these characters
so we
spectacular.
can, bring them up, talk to Dave about this whenever we do our phase
Lean
2
on
episode.
the
I'm
source
so
material.
excited.
Don't be
Again,
afraid to embrace the source
To
material.
those of you who made it to the end,
But
of this
also, don't
Herculean,
weigh yourself down with comic book
almost
accuracy.
Snyder
Because sometimes
Cut
that can be the
length
biggest chain
episode. This
preventing you
is
from
about
coming up
the
with something
longest
fun.
episode of this show. I
And
think we've
again,
done.
I will
by
say it. I
far.
will bookend this episode,
especially if you don't
with-
count
I think
live
that
streams.
is your gift.
Not
with
counting
adapting
live
a lot of the
streams
comic
is
book
absolutely
stuff,
the longest
is that
we've ever been
you
on
have
air.
a very keen
So
sense
thank
of
you
when to
for
tear it
tuning
off the
into this and
page
making
when
it all the
to
way to
press
the
that
end.
shuffle button. and
You guys can
remit some
find
stuff.
Dave
And
at
I think
Mr.
it is that
Radtastic
mix of,
on all of his social
finally,
media.
I'd love to see this on
all of his
screen.
social media,
And
which
then
is
an
Twitter,
ingenious change within
TikTok,
the lore.
TikTok,
and
YouTube, and
twist
Twitter
on,
in that order
concepts
is where you
that
can find Dave.
I think is incredibly
and watch
novel.
everything he makes
And,
because he
I
is
think
a phenomenal
warrants
storyteller
3.5 hour
and
runtime of this episode.
should
I-
be and should have his name
Do not
attached to
be.
some
I am
cape
going to
shit
cut it here
property
before
by
this
now.
turns in.
And absolutely
release the
deserves it
Radtastic
and
cut.
deserves all the praise
Um,
as well as some money from
But,
Warner
yeah,
Brothers.
I'm going to throw it
Um,
to future Jared.
You can
to
find
do
Travis at
outro
Travis
and
Political
Patreon stuff.
on
So,
Twitter
yeah,
and Instagram. And
thank
you can
you,
find me on Twitter and
Dave,
Instagram
and I
at Dark
cannot
Jedi 2552. And you can find the Nerd
cannot
Academy
wait
podcast
either.
on
It
Facebook,
has
Twitter,
my
Instagram,
favorite
YouTube,
movie I
Threads,
came up with.
wherever you listen to podcasts, and on our YouTube channel at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com, where if you're, well, I'm trying to change it up now. You go to thenerdacademypodcast.com, click that student store link.
Tpublic.com.
And get your hands on some good old TNAP merch. I'm wearing my favorite one for the outro here. Got the heather gray, got the TNAP crest shield, and the logo on the back. This is my favorite piece of merch we have. And if we can get to 500 subscribers before September, I personally will make sure that there is cookie cup merch in that store for October. You have my word on that. Get us to 500 and I will make it happen. While you're on the website, you can also go ahead and support us click on the Patreon link. I'm trying to figure out how to do the outro differently so I can remember to plug the merch. But while you're there, you can consider supporting our Patreon.
Give me $1.
Speaking of our patrons, thank you to our $10 alumnus, I'm going to lose this clip every time. Keandre Lloyd.
Colin Provolone. Sir.
So good.
Steal yourself, Colin. Steal yourself. This is me stealing myself.
To Elix Jones.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
And to our last $10 patron, Ray Clausen, who we both implore you to donate to Equality Texas and help protect queer folk in the Lone Star State. On our Patreon at the $5 tier, you get access to the Knights of the Nerd Republic Versus series, a show where Spencer and I take 2 Star Wars characters and see who would win in a fight across Legends, canon, all different eras, the High Republic, the sequel era, all of it. Smash it all together, see who comes out on top. Heroic History 101, where Travis and I sit down and read some comics and talk about it. And I may have a bun in the oven with a new series I'm going to be introducing to this show, because I am a hack fraud who's never had an original idea in his life and just likes to take other things I like and make it into Star Wars and make it into cape shit. So I may have a fun series I want to start working on here after Ahsoka that is going to debut on the Patreon. For those of you who have told me you missed TNAP Movie Club, I'm not going to say this is going to replace Movie Club. It's not. And it's not a revival of Movie Club either. May she rest in peace. Maybe one day. What I want to do is have this show release maybe a week or two early on Patreon, and then unveil it to the public. And I'm going to be really excited for it. It's going to be a series that, if I have my druthers, is going to be featured on both Knights of the Nerd Republic and the TNAP proper. So keep your eye out. Shouts out to the Dissect podcast. That's the only hint I'll give you. So yeah, be sure to check out our Patreon. Check out everything Mr. Radtastic does. Thank you all so very much for watching or listening. I'm very excited for phase 2 of Mr. Radtastic's DC Cinematic Universe. And yeah, class dismissed.
Stop! Move away from the cookie jar.